Apocalypse. Beginning by hoarding 10 billion supplies. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76. Back at the shelter, Chuantian and Coco were sitting together and chatting. Seeing Mu-Yun's return, Chuantian immediately cared. How is it? Is there a way? It should be fine. I'll recover my psionic energy first. Mu-Yun said calmly. You guys wait for me. It took a lot of energy to maintain Suye's awakening just now, and although the scope of the realm opened by Mu-Yun was not large, it still consumed 3 spiritual energy. To be on the safe side, it is safer to restore the state to the peak. Directly took out a 3rd order spiritual energy crystal nucleus and absorbed it. 10 minutes later, a devil fruit emitting a colorful halo appeared in Coco's hand. The gluttonous ghost who had long coveted this fruit couldn't wait to take it and take a bite. Suddenly, a strong stream of heat rushed down his throat into his stomach, turning into a surging spiritual power and rushing towards the limbs. Mu-Yun also opened the realm quickly with his eyes and eliminated the pain when Coco awakened. Coco couldn't help but moan comfortably. This heat flow is so comfortable. Uncle, Coco is a little uncomfortable, Coco said with a frown, fine beads of sweat on her forehead. Coco, who is still young, does not know how to express her feelings and can only replace it with discomfort. Be patient, it will pass quickly, Mu-Yun soothed gently. Chuantian stood by and watched nervously. Good hearing Mu-Yun's comfort, Coco's face turned slightly pale. Time passes by minute. 10 minutes. 20 minutes. 30 minutes. Until an hour passed. The evolution of Coco was not over. Husband, why hasn't it been over for so long? Chuantian looked at Coco with some concern. Coco won't be in any danger, right? You must know that. Even if Mu-Yun Jiu dies for a lifetime, the time to awaken is only an hour. Judging from the spiritual energy fluctuations emanating from Coco's body, Coco's awakening seems to have a long time, which is too strange. It's okay. Mu-Yun comforted. The longer the awakening time, the more powerful the power after awakening. Wait a minute. Another hour later, just when the spiritual energy in Mu-Yun's body was about to be exhausted, Coco finally fully awakened. She opened her eyes. Her eyes were clear and pure like the sea of stars, but the temperament around her body changed dramatically, and the whole person seemed to carry a holy and mysterious aura. The invisible pressure instantly filled the entire room, and the air seemed to be solidified, which was suffocating. In the next second, a dazzling white light erupted on Coco's body, and Mu-Yun only felt a huge coercive pressure coming towards him, and his head was buzzing. On the contrary, Chuantian looked at him suspiciously. A dazzling white ball of light appeared in midair, and then slammed into Coco's body. Boom! With a violent shaking sound, the originally clear sky suddenly changed. Dark clouds gathered, lightning and thunder, and violent wind and rain came in an instant. How daring! An ethereal voice sounded in the sky of City B, and it was impossible to tell whether it was a man or a woman. Strangely, for some reason, this voice did not reach the city below at all. The owner of the voice is not speaking to humans. Boom. Click. The sky suddenly exploded, and a silver grey giant waterfall poured down from the sky and landed on top of one of the tallest buildings in the middle of the city. The terrifying power directly split the edifice into pieces. Are you teaching me to do things? The ethereal voice sounded again, with a hint of disdain in his tone. Click. Click. Several more thunderbolts slashed, as if to vent their dissatisfaction, and finally, the dark clouds retreated, and the bright moonlight fell again. The night sky is full of stars and everything returns to calm. Inside the shelter, Coco's returned to normal, and the original holy and mysterious aura dissipated into invisibility. Uncle, Coco seems to have learned a very powerful skill. Huh. Mu-Yun glanced at her. Coco smiled and spread out the fleshy palm, only to see that a white symbol was spinning in the palm, exuding a soft glow. What is it? Chuantian also came forward curiously at this time, and looked at it. This symbol is very beautiful. Is it any use? Scratching the back of her head, Coco didn't know how to explain it. Obviously, with her little head, Melon can't understand the meaning of this symbol. Yun also looked at it curiously. He had never seen such a special ability in his previous life. Don't. Is it broken into someone else's body to be effective? Yes, that's it. Coco waved her little hand excitedly. Uncle, you guessed it. Yun was a little confused. What did I guess right? I didn't speak just now. Coco heard it. Shh. Yun reacted suddenly. So Coco can hear the voice of others? I don't know. I can hear it anyway. Coco looked innocent. Chuantian on the side was a little confused. What are you talking about? How can I not understand? Oh, Coco doesn't know how to explain it. See for yourselves. Saying that, Coco threw the rune flashing with a white halo towards Yun's eyebrows, and Chuantian's side did the same. As the rune entered the eyebrows, soon, a special connection appeared between the three. It's an amazing feeling. It's as if everyone can feel what the other is thinking, a bit like a transmission of thoughts. Coco? Yun tried to call in his heart, but Coco immediately responded. In Uncle Northeast. Following the connection, Coco transmitted the information he knew in his heart to Linming's heart. Skill. Mind control. Planting the seed of the mind on the target can produce a corridor of the heart, no matter where there is. Passive. Mind reading. The explanation was long, and the three of them studied it for a long time, and roughly understood the effect of the skill. It is equivalent to a LAN without distance restrictions. Coco is the administrator, can control the upload and download speed within the LAN, and can also monitor various information in the LAN. As the number of users in the LAN increases, Coco's administrator can also be enhanced. Yun could feel at this moment that there was a trace of spiritual energy in his body slowly flowing into Coco's body along the corridor of his heart. If his guess is correct, everyone who is planted with the seeds of his heart will become Coco's working boy. It is equivalent to paying the network fee. If this is to plant a seed for all mankind, wouldn't it break through the 10th order in minutes? Yun couldn't help but secretly speak. Of course, Yun also knew that this was impossible. No one wants to be planted by a stranger unless. Another bold idea popped up in Yun's mind. However, this matter still needs to be considered in the long run, and tomorrow I will go to the Blue Bay Manor to plant for my own people first. In this way, Yun was able to monitor every move in the base from thousands of miles away. If anyone gave birth to a rebellious heart, Yun could directly strangle it in the cradle. Overall, Coco became a god-level auxiliary. Over time, he will grow into a terrifying master in the later stage. The key is to save money. Just go and collect the internet fee. Chapter 77. The next morning, it was just dawning. Yun got up early to wash up, and after eating breakfast, he left the shelter with the two of them. First went to the girls' dormitory building next door, and brought Suye with her. When Suye saw Yun's family of 3, even the child was 6.5 years old, she couldn't help but feel a little lost. Looking at Chuantian, who was not much worse than her figure, and then looking at her downcast appearance at this time, after being a school flower for so many years, she felt a little inferior for the first time. Let's go. Yun glanced at Suye, said lightly, and then took the lead in walking out. Chuantian didn't say anything about this. Yun had already explained the identity of this cash cow to her last night. A group of 4 got into a black sub and headed towards Blue Bay. Passing by the sports center on the way, Yun glanced inside. I saw that the ruins of green slaves were piled up around the sports center, and the road surface was also full of potholes. Apparently a crater from artillery was used. It seems that the battle situation at that time was very fierce, and artillery was used. Inside the sports complex, no, exactly inside the military survivor base. At this time, there were many survivors, carrying large bags and small bags towards the base. Most of them are residents of the vicinity. Because Yun attracted a large wave of corpses, the number of green slaves around was scarce, and as long as the people around them did not mutate, they basically survived. On the football field in the base, tents have been erected, and the stands are full of survivors in a trance. This is the second day of the outbreak of the corpse tide. Even if the efficiency of the army is high, there is no way to settle these people so quickly, so they can only sleep in the stands first. Even in a difficult environment, survivors dare not complain in the slightest. After all, no one wants to leave the protective sphere of the army. They don't want to go out and fight those green monsters. Myung drove straight past without stopping to his destination. The only thing that puzzled him was that it was already a few kilometers away from the military base, and why the number of green slaves around was still very small. Yang Chen is just a regiment commander, and his soldiers are probably 10,000. But the population of the city center must be 300,000 or 400,000. Just one day's work was solved by them? Obviously impossible. After driving for a while again, Myung found the reason. I saw that on the horizon ahead, densely packed with green slaves. Above the heads of endless green slaves, a drone with a big horn hovered in the air. At this moment, a sharp alarm sound was sounding, attracting the surrounding green slaves one after another. The military wanted to use this method to lure a large number of green slaves out of the city. Myung's face was as gloomy as water. This method is indeed good, but the direction lured by the military is actually the Blue Bay Manor. That's the territory of labor and management. Grandma's legs. He now can't wait to pull all the turtle sons out and shoot them 10 times. But in the end, he suppressed the anger in his heart and began to think of a solution. I saw that he took out an M82A1 sniper rifle, referred to as Barrett, and threw it to Chuantian, the co-pilot. Daughter-in-law, knock down that drone for me. Look at me. Chuantian took the gun, got out of the car with his upper body, quickly locked the target with the scope, and pulled the trigger with a bang. A red bullet flew out of the muzzle and slammed into the drone. Immediately afterwards, with a slight crisp sound of click, the drone exploded instantly. Seeing this, Myung immediately turned his body, came a handsome drift, and turned directly into another road. After losing his target, Green Tide suddenly froze in place and began to wander aimlessly. Inside the survivor base, in a tent, soldiers are operating drones to guide the Green Tide outside the city. Now the signals are satellite signals, and it is very convenient to fly a drone regardless of distance. Suddenly, the screen in front of the soldier's eyes went black, and the picture disappeared directly. Report: the drone in the Z6 area was destroyed for unknown reasons. The soldier got up and reported to Yang Chen, who was full of sadness behind him. Damn, another destroyed one. Yang Chen cursed, and then ordered, continue to send new drones there. Yes, the soldier answered. A moment later, the soldier reported again. Report: the drone in the Z7 area was also destroyed. The reason is unknown. Hearing this, Yang Chen suddenly became angry and jumped up directly from the chair. Bastard, where are so many mutated monsters? Flying so high can be beaten down. The soldier stood aside with his head bowed, not daring to speak. Their plans didn't go as smoothly as expected. There are always a few mutated green corpses in the Green Tide that can release long-range attacks such as water blades, stones, and iron arrows, and shoot down drones in the sky. At the end of the day, 13 of the original 30 drones have been scrapped at this moment. If the Green Corpse Tide cannot be guided out of the city before it is all scrapped, then the only way to send soldiers can be sent to lure the enemy in person. As for the complete extermination of them, it is obviously unrealistic for their mere 10,000 people. You must know that the population of City B is tens of millions, and even if there are few who mutate into green slaves, it is at least 6 or 7%. 10,000 versus 6 million, isn't that just giving away heads? The central reaction was fast and the latest battle plan had been issued. That is to lure the tide of green corpses outside the city, and then use missile positioning, carpet bombing, and try to reduce their numbers. This is currently the most effective way to solve the problem. But this task is not easy to perform. After all, those green corpse tides are not so easy to deal with. Yang Chen was irritable, sat back in the chair, and rubbed his brows. Not long after, another soldier came to report. UAVs in areas Z6 and Z7 were again destroyed. Yang Chen raised his head sharply, his eyes red. Damn, how are these two areas again? At this time, the chief of staff on the side said, do you want to give up these two places for the time being? Yang Chen frowned, was silent for a long time, and nodded in agreement with the chief of staff's suggestion. Myung waited for a long time, and found that the drone did not appear again, so he prepared to continue towards the Blue Bay. However, the main roads are occupied by the Green Corpse Tide, and the remote roads are still covered by mutant plants, because no one has cleared them. Obviously, driving is not feasible. You can only fly a plane. Yes, just fly an airplane. Mu-Yun led everyone to an open area and then took the off-road vehicle back into the space. An R-64 Apache gunship suddenly appeared in everyone's view. Wow, helicopter A. Coco shouted excitedly. She hadn't sat on this thing yet. Chuantian and Suye's eyes were also full of surprise, obviously seeing it for the first time. Mu-Yun walked towards Apache with a smile, then opened the hatch and beckoned to Coco. Come up. Coco ran forward excitedly, immediately sat in the co-pilot, and the other two followed. Mu-Yun skillfully started the propeller, and then slowly lifted off into the air. Chapter 78. Woohoo to key off. The moment the helicopter took off, Coco waved her hands excitedly. Coco, don't move. Suye hurriedly reminded her. Got it. Coco answered, but was still very active. Mu-Yun glanced at her, the corners of his mouth raised slightly, but he didn't care about her. Suye on the side pursed her lips. Her small face was white, and she dragged the armrest in the cabin, and did not dare to move. She forgot that she was afraid of heights. Holding the steering wheel, Mu-Yun found the right direction, and flew towards the blue bay. Coco looked left and right curiously, and suddenly saw the scene below, and suddenly shouted, "Ah, look quickly." When everyone heard this, they turned their heads, and saw a group of black-pressed zombies below, forming a circular encirclement, slowly spreading outward under the guidance of army drones. At this time, the city center was cleared of a safe area with a sparse number of green slaves. Mu-Yun knew that it was the location of the Morning Light base in the future. It won't be long before the military builds a high wall to keep the green slaves out completely. Retracting his gaze, Mu-Yun continued to concentrate on piloting the plane. The piloting skills of the plane were learned by him in his previous life, so I will not repeat it here. 20 minutes later, a large gunship slowly stopped in a square of the estate. As soon as the helicopter landed, Sister Lan and the others surrounded it. The boss is amazing. The helicopter can get it. Niu Dazhuang shouted excitedly. If I can drive this helicopter and have another Vulcan Gatling, the green corpse tide is a fart. Okay, don't blow it yet. You'll fly a plane. Mu-Yun glanced at him lightly. Hearing this, Niu Dazhuang suddenly fainted. Inside the living room on the second floor, all the cadres gathered together, even Suye. In the future, she will be responsible for leading the production team to plant white fruits, and she can be regarded as half a cadre. When Mu-Yun learned that they had encountered a wave of green corpses yesterday, his face suddenly became gloomy. If you think about it with your toes, you know that it is a good thing done by the military. Otherwise, it was only a day since the corpse tide broke out. How could it be so easy to form a corpse tide, and it happened to be hit by them? However, when he learned that the maids had actually wiped out the corpse tide alone, Mu-Yun couldn't help but show a little surprise. Although they all have third order strength, dealing with green slaves is like chopping melons and cutting vegetables. But they were just a few ordinary weak women the day before. But it only took one day to adapt to this damn apocalypse and wipe out the tide of corpses. Even Mu-Yun had to admit that he underestimated them. Subsequently, Mu-Yun told everyone the origin of the corpse tide. When Niu Dazhuang heard this, he scolded his mother angrily. Those bastards are too vicious. Their people are people. Are we not people? Niu Dazhuang waved his fist angrily, eager to rush to the group of people now and give them some color to see. You must know that yesterday he directly lost 7 of his men. Mu-Yun waved his hand. Calm down. There's nothing wrong with the military doing this, because it will cost some survivors, but increase the chances of surviving for many more. Butler Fu calmly analyzed the pros and cons of the matter. The more Niu Dazhuang thought about it, the more annoyed he became, and he couldn't help but scold. Special Niang, then why should someone sacrifice Lao Tzu? Lao Tzu's brother is not human. Dazhuang, this kind of thing has nothing to do with right or wrong, it's just a different position. Now is not the time to talk about this, the key is how to solve it. Sister Lan spoke solemnly, interrupting Niu Dazhuang's complaint. Niu Dazhuang closed his mouth angrily and turned his head unwillingly, obviously still worried about this. Boss, what are we going to do next? If we allow the military to attract the tide of corpses, our camp will definitely be implicated. Do we want to leave here? Sister Lan's words fell, and everyone looked at Muyun in unison, waiting for his decision. Is there a way to contact the military? Muyun asked. Yes. Fu took out his mobile phone. Last night, the official emergency set up a survivor platform, which is to facilitate the place where survivors seek help and communicate. City B also has a special section where you can contact the local military heads. When Muyun heard this, he thought for a moment. Go and negotiate with the military. Just say that there is 100 survivor base in the direction of the corpse tide and see what the other party says. Good. Fu nodded and immediately found the official contact in the group. Fu is also an old quack and knows how to take advantage of the situation, so he directly sent a message in the group in front of all the survivors in City B. Fu, at B, there is a camp of hundreds of survivors in the direction of the corpse tide. Please ask the official to avoid this place. Address Blue Bay 30th. If there are survivors nearby, welcome to join. Passer BA, Lying Groove, Corpse Tide? What the heck? Fu, the plan being implemented on the official website. Passer BC, I'm nearby. I want to join, but I'm trapped. Passer BA, I seem to be on the road here. I live on the first floor. The corpse tide will definitely die. I begged my father to bypass my house. Passer BB, you don't run higher and linger. Passer BA, standing and talking without back pain. You have the ability to solve the 3 monsters at our door. I will definitely run. Passer BC, I already heard the roar of the monster. Wouldn't it be the corpse tide? As soon as this paragraph was issued, many people brushed the screen with it. Now that everyone knows about this, the pressure on the military is enormous. If he had agreed to Fu's request, others would surely follow suit and ask the official to change his route. But guiding the corpse tide is an extremely difficult thing. You say change the route, then they still play a yarn. There will definitely be victims in this matter. Originally, as long as the official task is completed, those victims will naturally have no opportunity to speak, and all of them will die under the tide of corpses. Until then, if the official comes forward to explain the situation, then they are the party of absolute justice and can still maintain their authority. But now, as soon as this news comes out, the taste has changed. All the survivors are panicking at the moment. Even if they don't die this time, what about next time? If something similar happens again, are they the ones who are sacrificed? At this moment, the survivors are afraid that they will be a little dissatisfied with the official. This was extremely unfavorable to the official image, but Yang Chen had nothing to do at the moment. And Yang Chen knew very well in his heart that it was the end of the world, and it was no longer that peaceful era. The grievances of the survivors must be suppressed with iron and blood, and only in this way can the tranquility of the entire city be guaranteed. In the end, the official replied to Fu's request to retreat to a safe area as soon as possible and not to participate in the corpse tide. Seeing this news, Muyun frowned. The implication is that they are abandoned. Chapter 79. However, Muyun was not angry at all, but laughed. That's a good thing. The hearts of the military are scattered. As long as the hearts of the people on their side can gather, then the base will not be established in minutes. What is the difference between Blue Bay Manor now? Material. Apparently not. It's the population. A large population can give birth to a large number of supernatural beings. The supernatural goes to hunt the green slave, and the crystal nucleus obtained increases the strength of the base city, and then it snowballs. To achieve this, the reputation of the base city is very important. Either the base is strong and safe enough, or the base is well treated, or there are many women in the base. And most importantly, fairness. It won't be long before all kinds of forces will spring up like mushrooms. Greed, desire, ambition. As long as it is a person, where can these things be avoided? This is also the main tone after the end times. In order to achieve their own goals, it is inevitable to use some dirty means. But once there are more such things, will anyone dare to live in your base? I'm afraid I can't even make a deal. If every base is this scene, for the sake of materials, for the sake of women by any means, then naturally everywhere is the same. But one survivor base is an exception. That is the base of the military. It is at least ostensibly fair, backed by the authorities, and powerful and secure. As a result, almost 80% of the survivors poured into the military's bases, and even if they traded materials, they would choose the military-run exchange, and they were simply unwilling to try their luck elsewhere. If you are not careful, the people and wealth will not be finished. Mu Yun, as a person who came over, knew this very clearly. Those really powerful bases all have a fairly decent style on the surface. As for how dark it is behind it, it is unknown, because those who know the truth are fed green slaves. And those arrogant and domineering bases are also shouting in the early stage, and it will not be long before they will pay for their greedy indulgence. At this moment, Mu Yun decided to do a big job and first establish the glorious character of the future base. So Mu Yun took Afu's mobile phone and began typing. Afu, since the military does not have the ability to deal with the corpse tide, then it is up to us in the Dragon Court to deal with it. As soon as these words came out, the group immediately caused an uproar. I'll go. This person is so arrogant. Cut. How can 100 people deal with a tide of tens of millions of corpses? It is simply grandstanding. Although I really hope that someone can destroy the corpse tide and save me from ascending to heaven, but, alas, forget it, it can't be. Ha. Fools have it every year, and today there is one more. A large group of trolls suddenly appeared in the group, and self-righteously began to mock Mu Yun. Mu Yun was too lazy to deal with these trolls, and directly ignored them. He was waiting for a reply from the military. A red message streaks across the screen. Jiangzhou B City official, the tide of green corpses, that even our army cannot end. What is the Dragon Court, and why do you say wild words? Afu, you ask me what the Dragon Court is, and now I will tell you that the corpse tide that the military cannot solve will be solved by my Dragon Court. Afu, also, blame me for killing what the military does not dare to kill. I will save the people that the military does not dare to save, and I will take care of what the military does not dare to manage. Afu, in a word, I will manage what the military can manage, and I will manage what the military cannot manage. This is the Dragon Court. Afu, is it clear enough? The group was instantly silent. Mu Yun put away his mobile phone with satisfaction, and no matter what the reaction of the people in the group was, everything was proved by actual actions. Let the commotion go out first, and it's only refreshing when you hit your face. Soon, a terrifying battle intent rose up on Mu Yun's body. After being reborn, Mu Yun saw his only concern again, and after staying in the gentle country for too long, he almost forgot what it was like to fight in real battle. It's also time for the event. Let everyone gather. I have something to announce. Mu Yun's tone revealed an irresistible taste. A moment later, 150 people quickly gathered on the square. Coco, give them the runes. No problem. Coco nodded obediently, and then waved his hand in front of him, and a large number of white runes flew in the air, and fell into everyone's eyebrows. The seed of mind was planted, and everyone present, and Coco created an invisible corridor of heart. After that, Mu Yun told everyone the role of the rune, and it was very convenient to communicate through his mind when fighting outside in the future. Of course, the ability to spy on other people's thoughts is naturally blocked. Only Coco, Mu Yun and Chuantian can hear everyone's true thoughts, but they generally don't turn it on, otherwise they will be killed by the chaotic sound. Everyone, are south. At this moment, hundreds of thousands of green corpses are coming towards us. Do you want to die? Mu Yun stood on the high platform, overlooking the group of people in front of him, feeling their true thoughts. Corpse tide? It won't be so unlucky. It's over. We don't even have enough to stuff the corpse tide with our teeth. Is the boss ready to take us for a run? Browse frowned. Most people's thoughts were to retreat, and few thought of going into battle to kill the enemy. This is also normal. No one wants to die in vain. This is a doomed battle. However, there are also some people who make Mu Yun satisfied. The corpse tide is good. You can get a large number of spiritual energy crystal nuclei again, and breaking through the 5th order this month is not a dream. I haven't studied my powers well before, so I can't miss it this time. If it weren't for physical and mental support, I could have killed the green slaves to extinction. Glancing at the group of maids behind him, Mu Yun hooked his lips slightly. Fortunately, there are a few more daring. Don't panic. We had weapons. We don't need to be afraid. This time, we will not only extinguish the tide of corpses, but also protect our homeland. This is an order. From now on, you must obey the order, and if you disobey, you will be severely punished. Understand? Mu Yun's words were sonorous and powerful, with an irresistible coercion, ringing in everyone's ears. This is an unparalleled momentum. This is a temperament that belongs to the leader, and people are inexplicably surrendered. Understood. 150 people roared in unison, and the sound boomed the four wilds. Of course, they were not impressed by Mu Yun's charisma. Instead, he was impressed by the 100 M777 howitzers he took out, as well as a DF-21 ICBM. Chapter 80. Just with 100 cannons, what is the green corpse tide? That group of green zombies only deserves to carry shoes for them. Very good. Now, gun in hand, follow me. Mu Yun gave an order, and everyone began to act quickly. This battle is not so easy. Even if their side has formed a crush in terms of equipment, it is still quite difficult for 130 people to fight the tide of tens of millions of green corpses. Husband, is it really okay? Although Chuan Tian was full of confidence in Mu Yun's strength, she couldn't help but tug at the dense tide of green corpses like locusts she saw on the plain. Don't worry, it's not really positive. You can't run. With that, more than 100 people left the manor in a mighty manner, except for the logistics sister and sister Lan, who were in charge of planting, who were responsible for guarding the house. Everyone else went to the battlefield. If someone looks down from the sky above City B, they can find a green lotus slowly spreading out in the city. The tide was divided by the military into 12 sectors, from Z1 to Z12. The first thing Mu Yun had to solve was the Z6 and Z7 areas that were surging towards the Blue Bay. In the car, Mu Yun took out a pad, opened the satellite map of City B, and began to look for a suitable blocking location. Soon, he found an excellent blocking position, about 3 kilometers northeast of the Z6 area, with a small raised hill. The height of the hill is about 3 floors, the slope is steep, and most importantly, the Z6 area can be observed at the top of the hill. The special operations team opened the way ahead, took the lead in clearing the green slaves near the target area, and everyone went to 20th Park to assemble. Received. XN This is the benefit of mind transmission, walkie-talkie or something weak explosion okay. With Mu Yun's order, the 2 vans of the maids began to accelerate, and immediately came to the front of the convoy. When they were near the hill, everyone pulled over and there was no way. The road to 20th Park was not cleared, it was all covered with vines, and Zhongli led 6 people to walk directly towards the destination. 7 pitch black figures galloped, saw the scattered green slaves on the side of the road, directly drew a knife to kill, and after a while, they cleaned up the green slaves on the road, and then continued to charge towards the target. Half an hour later, when everyone came to the top of the mountain, there were already more than 30 green corpses lying on the ground. Zeng. Yan Yunan flicked the tang knife in his hand, flicked the green sticky blood on the knifed body, and then withdrew the long knife to the scabbard behind his back. The cute bun face put on a cool expression. It's done. The maid big sisters gave a thumbs up. Awesome. After being held by Chuan Shine in his arms, his eyes were full of Ling Bling's starlight. Well, it's so cool. Then Coco will grow up quickly, and your aunt will teach you when you grow up. Chuan Shine pinched the tip of Coco's nose, making her giggle. HMM. Nodding emphatically, Coco secretly made up his mind that when he grew up, he would definitely become as handsome as Yan Yunan. The hill was covered with a large number of vines, and Mu Yun immediately ordered everyone to clear the site and set traps. 30 howitzers were taken out, and Mu Yun handed them over to Niut as they are for placement. Each howitzer requires 5 people to operate in a normal formation, and 30 is already the limit for them. How to reload ammunition, how to place it in the right place, how to position, how to fire. This information Mu Yun transmitted to everyone's minds through his mind, and everyone immediately understood it. I have to say that Coco's ability is really convenient. A dozen earth wizards began to use their powers, altering the topography of the hill to become a platform more suitable for howitzers, as well as traps in the middle of the hills. These earth powerhouses also need to be arranged. It can be said that, although the attack power of the soil system is not high, it has a mainstay position on the battlefield. Everyone worked all morning and finally finished setting up the position. At the top of the mountain, Myung held a telescope and looked at the tide of green corpses 3,000 meters away, and a chill flashed on his cold face. The M777 howitzer system is equipped with a digital fire control system, an onboard computer, a laser gyroscope, inertial navigation, automatic positioning and orientation equipment, and night observation equipment. The effective range can reach 24 kilometers. The normal speed is 2 rounds/minimum. The power can destroy all targets within a radius of 10 meters, and the shockwave can even spread to 50 meters, directly flying a large number of surrounding targets. Ready. With an order, all the guns adjusted their angles and aimed at the tide of green corpses in the distance. Launch. Boom. Boom. With a terrifying loud noise, the dense green ocean in the distance instantly exploded countless waves, accompanied by deafening screams. Green juice splashed everywhere, and stump and flesh flew all over the sky. The fire and smoke dispersed, and the green ocean was suddenly torn open with a terrifying opening. The green slave sensed the noise on the valley, and began to rush towards Myung and the others. The grenade was quickly loaded, and seeing this, Myung ordered without hesitation, "Shoot." The words fell, and the shells instantly cut through the air and smashed into the enemy's back row, 1 by 2, 3. The roar of the shells rose and fell one after another, and in less than 10 seconds, the green corpse tide that had just rushed out less than 100 meters was suddenly killed and injured. Ha ha ha, Lady Tate is cool. Niu Dazhyang shouted excitedly, and the eyes of the others also lit up. I have never fought such a rich battle in my life. Just talk about it, keep reloading. Myung glared at him. Niu Dazhyang smiled and immediately turned around and continued to reload. The roar continued. Myung and the others stood on the top of the mountain overlooking the mountain, and the entire battle situation was already showing a one-sided trend. The corpses of the green corpse tide were spread with a thick layer, and the corpse tide that was originally densely packed suddenly became much thinner. But this is nowhere near the point of eliminating it. 6 or 700,000 is not so easy to wipe out. In half an hour, the green corpse tide was bombarded, but there were still 2 or 300,000. Some of the scattered green corpses broke through the fire cover and had already rushed to the foot of the mountain. This meant that the corpse tide was less than 300 meters away from the mountaintop position. Niu Dazhyang continued to direct everyone to bombard the distant tide of corpses, and Zhongli, Chuantian and others also stopped watching the play, picked up their rifles and shot at the bottom of the mountain. Click. The muzzle erupted with a hot tongue of fire, and the sound of shells falling to the ground was endless. Myung was even more exaggerated, and directly took out a Vulcan Gatling. Nanwu Gatling Bodhisattva, 6 pure depleted uranium bombs, 1 breath of 3,600 revolutions, great mercy and compassion to cross the world. Myung chanted and sang Buddha in his mouth, lifted Gatling, and frantically strafed at the corpse tide. Bullets were like rain, pouring into the corpses one after another, hitting the corpses with flesh and blood. When everyone saw this, there was an uproar. Lying Groove, boss, this is also too cruel. Amitabha, but, good. Chapter 81. The fierce green corpse tide was suppressed by Myung with a Gatling. No matter how they struggled and roared, they still couldn't stop the dense locust-like barrage, and they lost a lot in the blink of an eye. There were corpses all over the ground under the mountain, and the rich fishy smell was almost suffocating. But this could not stop the killing of everyone on the mountain in the slightest, but it stimulated their inner ferocity even more, constantly shooting towards the corpses below. The sound of artillery and gunfire is intertwined, which is unusually conspicuous in this silent city. Attracted by the dense sound of bombing, nearby survivors ran to the window to look in the direction where the gunfire was coming from. Looking at the scene, that seemed to be like a Shura purgatory, everyone showed shocked expressions, and a cool breath rushed straight to the sky. The first thing that encounters this kind of thing is how should the time be? Naturally, it is a pretense such as taking pictures and posting moments of friends. As a result, a short 30-second video appeared in the survivor group of City B. In the video 30 guns opened fire in unison, and shells with tail flames whizzed past, penetrating the corpses and setting off a monstrous flame. Corpses turned into char, hot blood flowed, corpses were strewn across the field, blood flowed like rivers. Your background is too fake. What movie? So exciting. You bluff. This is obviously true. Someone is attacking the green corpse tide. Who is so fierce? I was near that area and saw it with my own eyes. It seems that some big force is fighting with the green corpse tide, and now the battle between the two sides is very fierce. Do you remember the man named Afu in the morning? You remind me like this. I feel that I have found the truth. This is the force that called the military. It seems to be called the Dragon Court. No wonder you dare to fight with the military. It's really fierce enough. 66666666666666666 so strong. Actually dare to face the green corpse tide. Really domineering enough. +1. I decided to join them. Over time, a large number of small videos appeared in the group. Clicks on these videos soared and eventually topped the list of City B forums. In an instant, the news that the Dragon Court formed an army and fought with the green corpse tide swept the city in an instant. Although I don't know what kind of force they are, since they have the power to wrench the wrist with the corpse tide, it is worth turning to. The military does not dare to provoke the tide of corpses, and this force has the courage to take the initiative to attack, which shows that the strength is extraordinary. If you can join the other side's forces, it is much more reliable than the military in terms of security. Many people secretly contacted the account named Afu and asked if they were recruiting new personnel. However, at the moment, Fu did not have time to pay attention to these at all. At this time, he was reloading the howitzer hard and fiercely pulled the lead of the cannon against the tide of green corpses that had rushed thousands of meters away. Although most of the green corpse tide has been wiped out, there are still nearly 100,000 remaining. Moreover, they are getting closer and closer to their positions, and according to this trend, it is estimated that they will soon be flooded by the tide of green corpses. Mu Yun's face was expressionless, just indifferently pulling the trigger. Suddenly the Vulcan Gatling, who rotated 3,600 revolutions per second, gradually ceased after firing the last shuttle bullet. Blue smoke was coming from the barrel, and the shooting took too long, and the heat had reached its upper limit. Mu Yun put away the machine gun and continued to strafe with his rifle. At this moment, the tide of green corpses had climbed halfway up the mountain, and it was less than 200 or 300 meters away from the position. Mu Yun narrowed his eyes, the corners of his mouth slightly hooked, and his eyes flashed with a dangerous light. All long-range psychic beings now begin to unleash their skills uninterruptedly towards the mountain. As soon as the command was issued, all the long-range superpowers immediately began to act. A large number of boulders, water blades, and fireballs poured down from the top of the mountain and landed in the tide of green corpses at the foot of the mountain. The skills of those first-order superpowers can't splash a little in the corpse tide, and they still have to see the effect of the skills of third-order superpowers. Yan Yunan took the lead in releasing a large ice pick the thickness of a bucket and slammed it into the green corpse tide. The ice pick broke the heads of the green corpses and took away countless green corpses. Then 2 more boulders flew and smashed on the green corpse's body. The boulder hit the tough green corpse skin and suddenly burst open and flew around. Ouyang Hang's stone falling technique can really be regarded as falling stones, and the stones of other Earth system superpowers are only the size of a basin, and they can smash 1 or 2 green slaves to death at most. However, Ouyang Hang's falling rock has a diameter of about 2 meters, and it smashes a large area, and the round boulder rolls down the hillside and crushes a large piece to death. Immediately after that, a scorching flaming bomb streaked through the sky and fell into the ranks of the green corpse tide with a boom. A huge cloud of flame mushrooms soared into the air, and burning black smoke filled the air. Healing's firebomb power has caught up with the grenade, and it also blew up a large piece when it was smashed. Liu Meng's 9-arrow rain began to rotate rapidly under the increase of Fan Zioki's electromagnetic force, and the electric flint was like 9 sharp swords, cutting in the middle of the green corpse, easily tearing open the 9 passages. The most exaggerated is Chuantian's ultimate flash. The dazzling 5-colored pillar of light fell violently in the group of green corpses with the power of destroying everything. Where the pillar of light touched, the terrifying power of annihilating everything instantly crushed the zombies within 500 meters in front of her and spread deeper into the depths. Mu Yun did not make a move, mainly because the distance was not enough. the power generated within the realm would simply disappear after leaving the realm, which was a drawback he had recently discovered. However, even if he didn't make a move, with these powers of Chuan Tian and the special combat group, it would be enough to resist these green corpses under the mountain. 123rd order spiritual energy crystal nuclei Mu-Yun obtained yesterday in the girls' dormitory have been distributed to them, allowing them to release their skills while recovering their energy. Soon, the overwhelming skills came again. Brilliant flames, sharp arrows, explosive airwaves. There was chaos at the foot of the mountain. Once again, these images were captured and passed into the survivors group chat. Everyone was amazed. I'll wipe it. Who is this special meow? It's just hanging the sky. Is this the psychic? If I have this ability, I'm afraid of a bird green corpse tide. Don't dream. I've seen awakened powers, but their powers are simply weak, and they are not as useful as a brick from me. And these people are not ordinary powers, at least above the third order. I'll go. The power of the Dragon Court is also too good. How did so many third order cultivations that is, labor and management killed 2 monsters and 9 dead lives outside, and as a result, they were half dead of hunger after absorbing, and they ate all the reserve food. Without those white fruits to cooperate with absorption, it is too consumable to enhance the power. No, labor and management must join this force. It is useless for Jesus to come, I said. +1 plus 10,086. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82. Just when the artillery was under fire outside and everyone in the group was talking about it, the atmosphere in the survivor base of the military region was a little tense. It was not about the sudden rise of the Dragon Court forces that slapped the military in the face, but an unexpected force suddenly appeared. Sun Jianguo with 100 or so subordinates was standing at the gate of the barracks with an arrogant face. If these 100 or so people were just ordinary people, Yang Chen, who was holding them with them, would definitely order his subordinates to take down this group of people as soon as possible. However, this group of people were real second order powers. Sun Jianguo, who was the leader, had already reached the level of a third order superpower. Major Yang, 10 rifles for 1 awakening fruit. You shouldn't lose money in this deal, right? Sun Jianguo said with a smile. Although his tone was polite, his attitude was very tough. Seeing Yang Chen's gloomy face and did not speak, Sun Jianguo took out a cigar without hurry, and with a pinch of his fingertips, a flame ignited, and he lit a cigarette roll at will and smoked. Major Yang, you and I are both smart people. You know the value of the awakening fruit better than anyone. You might as well think about it. Yang Chen said coldly. Sun Jianguo, don't think that you are a third order powerhouse who can fight us. Believe it or not, I will immediately send troops to surround you. Sun Jianguo laughed when he heard this. Surround me? I'm so scared. Before the green tide broke out, Sun Jianguo collected a lot of devil fruits, and after shooting his precious son in the villa the night before, he began to gather his subordinates to solve all the monsters in the hotel. And based on the hotel, we began to collect manpower and materials. When he learned the true use of the devil fruit yesterday, the anger that was originally because of his son's tragic death instantly turned into ecstasy. This miraculous fruit can actually make people awaken and become stronger, and their physique multiplied. Sun Jianguo has no doubt that, as long as he awakens to become a supernatural, and obtains a strong physique, when the time comes, he will be old and strong, and his son will be regenerated. No, 1 is not enough, at least 10. Sun Jianguo's mood was agitated, and he couldn't wait to eat a red fire demon fruit. Of course, the seeds in the fruit must have been taken out. After becoming a superpower, Sun Jianguo's ambition suddenly skyrocketed. Since he has so many awakening fruits, why can't he build a superpower to dominate the doomsday? Thinking of this, Sun Jianguo rushed directly to the next door, and 2 shots solved his in-laws, that is, Wuzu's parents. A big wave of your hand not only swallowed up the power of the Wu family, but also appropriated the devil fruits they collected. Yesterday, Sun Jianguo and his men began to awaken madly. Although they had almost consumed their reserves of devil fruit, in Sun Jianguo's opinion, everything was worth it. Don't see that there are only 100 subordinates around him now, but all of them are second order powers, and there are thousands of first order powerhouses in the camp of the hotel. It can be said that Sun Jianguo is fearless, and he is not afraid of Yang Chen's army. Even if the army has powerful thermal weapons, Sun Jianguo is not stupid, he can't fight and run. As for now, Yang Chen did not dare to start a war at the base, otherwise these survivors around him would suffer. Pinching this point, Sun Jianguo has no fear, and he is as arrogant as he is. Yang Chen was so angry at this moment that his eyes were spitting fire. Their army did find a lot of devil fruits on the way here, but those were sent back to the 9th district halfway for sealing. At this moment, he only had more than 30 awakening fruits and thousands of white fruits in his hands. The central government's aid had not yet arrived at the moment, so he had to eat this dumb loss temporarily and wait until the 9th district sent the materials before settling the general account with Sun Jianguo. Moreover, he is the youngest major in Huaxia, and it is not necessary to use force to deal with such a reckless person. Thinking of this, Yang Chen's eyes rolled around. Sun Jianguo, don't forget, your brothers Sun Jianhe and Sun Jianchuan are all in my hands. Hearing this, Sun Jianguo was slightly stunned. Immediately, he sneered, I almost forgot, my two good brothers have fallen into your hands, if you want to threaten me. Saying that, a cruelty flashed in the corner of Sun Jianguo's eyes. If you want to kill, I will burn more paper money to worship them, ha 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 ha. His smile became more and more exaggerated, as if he had heard some big joke. Tears and snot flew all over his eyes, and the whole person looked like a madman. Yang Chen frowned, but the corners of his mouth outlined a meaningful arc. You can even abandon your own brother. Ha. Sun Jianguo sneered. From the day I awakened, I was destined to stand on a high place and look down on this land, and they would only be a burden to me. In the cruel environment of the end times, even a half-brother may not be reliable, you say. Sun Jianguo looked at Yang Chen with a smile, and the corners of his mouth raised a hideous color. I have to admit that Sun Jianguo sees the end times extremely thoroughly, but it is useless to see it thoroughly, and he must have enough means to convince his subordinates. Just now, when Sun Jianguo said that, the expressions on the faces of his subordinates were wonderful. When you come out to mix, the most important thing is righteousness. Sun Jianguo's vision as a businessman may be okay, but if he wants to be the boss, it is estimated that he will not live more than 3 chapters. Mr. Sun is really honest. Yang Chen's eyes were full of ridicule, and the anger just now had dissipated, but there was a little more mockery. To deal with this kind of person, Yang Chen had already thought of countermeasures. Perhaps without waiting for the support of the 9th district, the strength of his base would be greatly improved. Don't talk nonsense, my patience is not very good. Just ask you to exchange 1 awakening fruit for 10 guns. Do you change it or not? Sun Jianguo snorted coldly, his eyes narrowed, and his body was full of anger. Yang Chen shook his head indifferently. Did you misunderstand something? Although I can't help me now, you don't seem to be able to help me, right? Saying that, Yang Chen's hand waved, a sound of footsteps sounded, a group of soldiers with guns and live ammunition walked out from behind the house, and the swarthy muzzle of the gun was suddenly aimed at Sun Jianguo. There were at least 200 soldiers, including 30 second order powers. Sun Jianguo's face suddenly turned as black as the bottom of a pot. You were prepared. His face was livid, and his eyes flickered brightly and darkly. That's not it. Who let you talk too much nonsense, and gave me time to prepare? Chapter 83. The corners of Yang Chen's mouth curled in a confident arc. You better leave obediently now, otherwise, don't blame these soldiers under me for not having long eyes. Aren't you afraid that I and you will break the net? Sun Jianguo roared sharply. Feel free. Yang Chen spit out these 2 words lightly. But, you're good. Let's ride a donkey to read the ledger, and walk and see. Sun Jianguo had a black face, dropped this sentence, and quickly left with his subordinates. Yang Chen was afraid that the exchange of fire between the 2 parties would hurt the innocent, and Sun Jianguo expected this to be fearless. But if he really forced Yang Chen to be anxious, it was definitely himself who suffered in the end, and even if he was not careful, his son Jianguo would have to account here. Looking at their departing backs, Yang Chen immediately ordered the soldiers to quietly contact Sun Jianguo's men. A conspiracy against Sun Jianguo began. Just as Yang Chen was about to carry out the task of searching for materials, a subordinate hurriedly ran over and handed an iPad. "Report, sir, this is the latest video of the Dragon Court. In the video, I saw that the brilliant and colorful energy was pouring down against the green corpse tide, and with a roar, countless green corpses were blown away by the power. The significance of this video is huge. Let everyone understand the power of the supernatural, and how to protect themselves in the last days." Yang Chen looked solemn. He felt that this force called the Dragon Court was by no means as simple as a civil organization. Not only does it have this powerful military power, guns and ammunition are not only used, but it can also have so many awakening fruits. This had to allow Yang Chen to associate this force with the most secret force in China, the Dragon Group. It was a special force independent of the military department, and directly under the responsibility of the central government. The number of people is always controlled at 100. But all those who join the Dragon Group have super high physical fitness and excellent combat skills, and their identities are mysterious, and no one has ever known who they really are. Yang Chen also overheard his old man mention it, only to know that such a force existed. Only this team can have such terrifying military power, and make such an amazing move on the first day of the end times. Yang Chen frowned, and fell into deep thought. He felt that he should find Longting. After all, everyone worked for the central government, maybe they could still cooperate. However, this matter is not in a hurry for the time being. What Yang Chen wants to do most now is to collect the awakening fruit, and improve his power level. Always pay attention to the other party's actions, and notify me as soon as there is any news, Yang Chen ordered. Yes, sir. Immediately afterwards, he left the base with the soldiers of the 1st and 2nd companies and began to search for the fruits of awakening around the base. Boom, another artillery shot directly wiped out a large group of green slaves in the Green Corpse group. The flames instantly burned, green blood splashed, and a strong stench filled the air. The Green Corpse tide has climbed halfway up the mountain, less than 100 meters from the summit. The traps laid out before had little effect in the face of the huge number of corpse tides, but only slightly slowed down the pace of the corpse tide. Boss, the angle of the howitzer can no longer hit these guys. NIU'd as Yang stopped reloading the shells and reported to Mu Yun. The tide of corpses in the distance has been basically cleaned up, but these green corpse shells at the foot of the mountain are powerless. Looking at the densely packed green slaves under the mountain, Mu Yun frowned slightly. Although most of the corpse tide has been wiped out by grenades, a small number of them remain. But the number of green corpses is so terrifying, even if it is only a small part. There are 50 or 60,000. Stop firing. Rifle fire. Mu Yun calmly gave the order. Soon, hundreds of people behind him immediately dropped their howitzers and came to the front of the battle. One aimed his rifle at the tide of green corpses below the hillside and then pulled the trigger without hesitation. Tap, dense bullets poured out and landed in the tide of green corpses. In an instant, one corpse after another fell. But there are too many green corpses, and there is almost no end in sight. The skills in the hands of the long-range superpowers have not stopped, and when they have recovered, they will throw them towards the green corpses again, without looking at whether they are lost or not. So many green slaves are piled up together, smashing one by one. With the addition of more than 100 rifles, the pressure of the corpse tide finally eased somewhat. However, at this moment, a black shadow suddenly burst out from the group of green corpses. The speed of this black shadow was extremely fast, as if it was a black fog, and in an instant, it had swept in front of everyone. Poof, the black shadow stretched out its claws like lightning, and grabbed a man standing at the forefront. The sharp claw tip pierced his chest, and then with a pull, bright red blood suddenly sprayed out. The scream came, and the man fell directly to the ground, and after a few twitching legs, he completely lost signs of life. Mutant green corpse. Run away. I don't know who shouted, and everyone immediately retreated. Raw, the pitch black mutant green corpse roared angrily up to the sky. Its scalded eyes scanned everyone, and the mutant black vine on its body immediately swung towards the female psychic closest to it. The speed of the black vine was extremely fast, and she was not allowed to resist at all, only to see a cold flicker. The head of the female supernatural was thrown in midair, and blood gushed out wildly. Seeing this terrifying scene, the remaining superpowers dodged to the side, and no one dared to get close to the mutant green corpse again. The mutant green corpse also seemed to sense the fear of the group of humans in front of it. It opened its fangs, its scarlet tongue licked its lips, and its scarlet eyes showed an excited expression. Just as it was about to continue hunting its prey, a dark silver figure came to the front with a flash and smashed a punch at it. Boom. The huge force hit its head, and the huge body of the mutant green corpse was suddenly smashed into the soil. The mutant green corpse screamed violently, squirming wildly and squirming the vine towards the figure. A sound of metal clashing came, and the figure raised its hand to block the attack. It seems to be a mutated green corpse with the same ability as me. Zhang Lan's eyes narrowed slightly, and her face was full of excitement. The mutant green corpse killed by the small corpse tied yesterday is also a golden mutant green corpse. Zhang Lan absorbed the strengthening stone at night, and now her energy consumption has become less and lasts longer. At this moment, looking at the golden crystal on the green corpse's brain door that was smashed into the ground, Zhang Lan's heart was suddenly extremely excited, and she couldn't wait to dig up this golden crystal and devour it now. She jumped onto the brain door of the mutant green corpse, raised her right foot, and stepped on it. Click. A sound of bones shattering sounded, and the entire neck of the mutant green corpse was broken. Zhang Lan easily solved this mutant green corpse, and then dug out the golden strengthening stone, and carefully put it in his pocket. According to the distribution mode of their squad, this one should be Fan Zioka's turn to absorb, and if it can be encountered next time, it will be given to Liu Meng. After likely killing the terrifying mutant green corpse, Zhang Lan returned to the team again and strafed the tide of corpses below. Chapter 84. Why are you stupid? If you don't want to die, keep shooting. Niu Daseon cursed angrily while shooting at the tide of corpses. When his words fell, the originally sluggish crowd immediately reacted and continued to raise their guns and shoot. Special ladies, a bunch of waste is not even as good as a woman. Niu Daseon couldn't help but burst into foul language, but was glared at by Zhang Lan on the side. What did you say? Zhang Lan stared at him coldly. I'm praising you. After laughing twice, Niu Daseon instantly lost his head and obediently closed his mouth. Click. Dense gunfire rang out in the tide of corpses, bullets crackling on the green corpse's body, and blood flew everywhere. Mu Yun noticed that there were still many mutated green corpses in the corpse tide, and the strength of those who could survive until now was obviously not simple. Suddenly, there was a roar from behind the corpse tide, followed by a rush and heavy footsteps. Everyone looked solemn, and aimed at the rear with their weapons in hand. A tall and powerful earthy yellow monster walked out from behind the corpse tide, and the muscles of its whole body were like steel pouring, filled with an extremely oppressive aura. Fourth order mutant zombies. The first time he saw this mutant zombie, Mu Yun made a judgment. Third order green corpses are already rare, not to mention this kind of fourth order mutant zombie. This is definitely the first time everyone has seen it. As soon as the fourth order mutant zombie appeared, it raised its head to the sky and roared, and the terrifying low sound was deafening. The dense bullets hit its hard skin, bursting out brilliant sparks, but its defense was too amazing, and the bullets hit its body with no effect. Boss, this guy is a bit difficult to deal with. Niu Daseon and the others looked at each other, and a trace of panic flashed in their eyes. It's just a fourth order mutant green corpse. What are you afraid of? Anshan, give this big guy a shot. Looking at this mutant zombie, Mu Yun took a deep breath and said quickly. Chuan Tian nodded. The 5-colored starlight in his hand lit up, and he immediately pushed out a palm against the mutant zombie. Boom! The pillar of light rushed straight to the mutant zombie with a momentum like a bamboo. Bang! With a deafening explosion, the mutant zombie instantly flew out upside down and fell violently among the corpses in the distance. It struggled to get up. The vines wrapped around its body had completely shattered, and its huge 2-story body was blasted out of a large hole, revealing the rotten internal organs inside. Roar. It howled angrily, its cloudy eyes were full of hatred, and a pair of scarlet pupils stared at Chuan-Tian and the others, as if to tear them apart. Seeing this, Chuan-Tian did not hesitate to face it with another ultimate flash. This time, the big guy learned well. I saw that the earthy yellow crystal in the center of its eyebrows flashed with dazzling yellow light, and a huge rock the size of a car appeared out of thin air, blocking it in front of it. The ultimate flash hit the rock, and suddenly there was a violent explosion, and a strong shock wave spread out in all directions, knocking those ordinary green slaves to the ground. And the mutant zombie hiding behind the rock never expected that the pillar of light continued to crash into him like a broken bamboo, and there was no tendency to stop. In the end, this pillar of light slammed into the big guy's head. Bang! Click! A crisp sound of bones shattering sounded, and the rock on the mutant zombie's head that was the size of a basin instantly shattered, turning into countless fine sand, and falling to the ground. At the same time, a fist-sized crystal nucleus and a thumb-sized crystal fell from the mutant zombie brain door. Chuan-Tian exhaled softly, fourth order psionic crystal nucleus. With a quick eye, she rushed into the corpses in a flash, picked up 2 crystals at an amazing speed, and returned to the position. Husband, look quickly. She stretched out her right hand and spread out her palm, and saw 2 crystal nuclei lying quietly in her white palm, emitting a faint fluorescence. So beautiful. Looking at the crystal clear in the palm, Yu Hang Hang and then Yu Dazhang's eyes were about to burst into sparks. If they let the 2 of them absorb it, their soil system energy will definitely skyrocket. The surface of the earth crystal is brown and the texture is very strong, and you can even feel a hint of warmth in your hand. Another 4th order spiritual energy crystal nucleus, 1/3 of the transparent crystal nuclei turned milky white, exuding rich spiritual energy fluctuations. Under everyone's longing eyes, Mu-Yun directly included the 2 crystal nuclei into the space ring. Who behaves well to whom in the future? Saying that, Mu-Yun glanced at Yu Dazhang and Yu Hang Hang. The 2 looked at each other, and what was revealed in their eyes was inevitable. Suddenly the intense gunfire continued, and the bullets were squandered like money. Mu-Yun had hoarded 400 million bullets before. Even if he had been consuming it like this, he couldn't finish it in 7 days and 7 nights, and he didn't feel distressed at all. Near dusk, the last green slave fell under everyone's gun, and the corpse tide was finally wiped out. Woo. When the battle ended, everyone collapsed on the ground, gasping for air. Although they really wanted to yell loudly to express the joy in their hearts at the moment, they really had no strength, and were tired like a dead dog. Damn, I'm exhausted, Laotizu. Yu Dazhang sat on the ground with his butt, looking like he was deficient in kidneys. He was not physically weak, but mentally exhausted from a tense expression after a long period of fighting. The state of the maids is much better than that of Yu Dazhang. After all, they experienced a vicious battle yesterday, and have already adapted to it. Rest for a while. Try to clean the battlefield before dark. At night it will be very troublesome to clean, when the lights are dark. Mu-Yun looked at everyone and instructed. The maids and Yan Yunan nodded in understanding. Cleaning the battlefield last night had exhausted them. When everyone heard this, they also didn't want to act in the dark at night. The moon was dark and the wind was high, and the ground was full of corpses, and the scene was panic. When I thought about it, Mu-Yun took out several boxes of Snickers, and threw one box by one. After a big war, everyone has long been hungry, and a box of Snick racks down, directly sweeping the hunger. As for why not use white fruit? That is a valuable material used when absorbing spiritual energy crystal nuclei. How can it be used at will? After resting for half an hour, everyone began to clean up the battlefield. A huge amount of spiritual energy crystal nuclei piled up sack after sack. I was tired today, but the harvest was really amazing. Chapter 85. The corpses scattered all over the mountains are like hell on earth, which is shocking. The tide of nearly 400,000 corpses was blown to smithereens, and the spiritual energy crystal nuclei in the body naturally turned into powder. But even so, there were nearly 300,000 psionic crystal nuclei left, enough for them to consume for a while. You must know that Mu-Yun spent nearly a week before with great effort, but he only collected 60,000 spiritual energy crystal nuclei. These 300,000 pieces are enough to cultivate 35th order powerhouses, or 304th order powerhouses. By that time, the strength of their Dragon Court base will be unprecedentedly strong. Even sweeping the entire B city is not a problem. Fu took a notebook and counted today's harvest. Sir, today we have obtained a total of 312,366 first order psionic nuclei, 3,200 second order crystal nuclei, 23rd order crystal nuclei, and 1/4 order crystal nucleus. In addition, there are 367 strengthening stones of various attributes. In terms of consumption, a total of 5,070 howitzers were consumed, about 3 million bullets, 3,090 first order crystal nuclei, and 36 third order crystal nuclei. Okay, I see. Mu Yun looked at the spiritual energy crystal nuclei piled up into a small mountain in front of him, and smiled with a satisfied expression. Oh, in the blink of an eye, the crystal nuclei were all included in the space ring by him. Looking at the time, it was already 10 o'clock in the evening. Although everyone's movements were very sharp, it still took 5 hours to clean up the battlefield. At this moment, only exhaustion remained on everyone's faces, even Chuantian. Finish work, I'll be here today. Mu Yun waved his hand at everyone behind him. Tomorrow is a day off. Hearing Mu Yun's words, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and was finally relieved. Coming to the bottom of the mountain, finding the car when they came, the group dragged their tired bodies back to the manor. When Sister Lan and the young ladies who were guarding the camp saw these people returning, they were overjoyed and greeted them. How's it going? Are you okay? Sister Lan asked excitedly. Mu Yun shook his head. It's okay, everything is going well. Sister Lan patted her chest and breathed a long sigh of relief. It's okay. After that, everyone should take a bath, sleep, and sleep. Sister Lan and Afu will arrange it, and Mu Yun does not need to worry about it. Picking up Coco, who had fallen asleep, Mu Yun took Chuantian back to the room where he originally lived. He changed Coco's pajamas and threw her on the bed. This afternoon, Coco too stood on the side very obediently, not causing Mu Yun a lot of trouble, but making Mu Yun feel a lot more worry-free. Looking at Coco, who fell asleep quietly, Mu Yun gently touched her head, and then took Chuantian to the bathroom to take a bath. Early the next morning, everyone stood in front of Mu Yun full of spirit, waiting for Mu Yun's next order. All of them. I'm announcing a few rules here. Mu Yun put his hands behind his back, and looked at everyone seriously. Today I will let all of you break through to become third order powers. Presumably you have seen the strength of the third order yesterday, but on the contrary, 40% of the spiritual energy crystal nuclei you harvest in the future must be handed over to the base. What? Everyone was stunned. They worked hard to kill the enemy and snatch the spiritual energy crystal nucleus, and in the end, they could only get 60%. This made the faces of individual people instantly gloomy. Mu Yun seemed to have guessed that they would react this way, and glanced at Chuanshan quietly, letting her monitor the true thoughts of these people. If you don't know how to lift, then don't blame him for being unkind. One thing you have to understand, it's me. I gave you the opportunity to awaken too. I gave you powerful weapons, and it was my order, and I didn't turn you into terrifying monsters. Now, is there any problem with me just wanting 40% of your earnings? Mu Yun's cold eyes swept across everyone's faces, and said indifferently, if you are not convinced, you can leave now. If you choose to join our Dragon Court base, you must survive according to my rules. Speaking of this, the corner of Mu Yun's mouth outlined a mocking arc. Leave now, I will definitely not obstruct. But if anyone wants to make small moves behind their backs, don't blame me for turning my face ruthlessly. Hearing these words, everyone's hearts trembled, and they were suddenly silent. Mu Yun snorted coldly, tell me, your decision. I agree. Agreed. It's the same. In the end, no one opted out. After all, the strength of the Dragon Court base is in their eyes. Moreover, Mu Yun saved their lives, and provided the devil fruit. If this is still going to be troublesome, it will be too ungrateful. Well, since you choose to stay, I naturally won't treat you badly. Saying that, Mu Yun waved his hand lightly, and 110 first order spiritual energy crystal nuclei appeared in front of everyone. This time, we got a total of about 300,000 psionic crystal nuclei. According to what I just said, each of us can get 1,500. These are enough for you to become third order superpowers, and the rest will be recorded in your personal account. You can ask Afu to get it at any time. Of course, you can also exchange crystal nuclei for various materials in the future. In the base, spiritual energy crystal nuclei are our transaction currency. As for the exchange ratio, I will let Fu sort it out later. In addition, you need to pay attention to the fact that I hope that you can become strong as soon as possible, and the crisis of the end times is much more terrible than you think. Mu Yun's words made everyone pay attention. After all, this mysterious boss can predict the existence of the end times, and his words are absolutely convincing. Yes, everyone shouted in unison. Now, I announce that our Dragon Court base has been officially established. Congratulations, you will gain a new identity, citizens of the Dragon Court base, and from now on you will coexist with the Dragon Court base. In the near future, we will stand on the stage of the world, establish immortality, and glorify the ages. Mu Yun's voice was sonorous and powerful, making people's blood boil. Everyone's eyes lit up, full of fighting spirit, as if they had seen a beautiful picture of the future. Establish immortality, glory through the ages. Mu Yun's words seemed to have a miraculous effect, and everyone shouted, their voices loud and deafening. Chuan Tian next to him always felt that Mu Yun at this moment was a bit like a pyramid schemer. Become bigger and stronger, and create brilliance again. Sure enough, even the lines are very similar. What is MLM? Is it tasty? After hearing Chuan Tian's heart, Coco couldn't help but ask this question in her heart. Chapter 86. When everyone's mood calms down, it's their long-awaited moment to advance. They only have psionic crystal nuclei, but they don't have white fruits to absorb them. This meant that for every psionic crystal nucleus they absorbed, they had to show off 3 or 4 bowls of rice. Since Mu Yun had promised to help them break through to the third order, he would naturally prepare all the food. 8 large iron pots were set up, and Mu Yun took out 20 pigs, 20 cows, and many vegetables and rice, and handed these to the young ladies of the Wood family, and began to boil water for cooking. Food is always the most precious in the last days, and even if others obtain 300,000 spiritual energy crystal nuclei, if there is not enough food, they can only hold it with dry eyes. How can he be like Mu Yun? He can squander it without feeling distressed. With the materials in his ring at the moment, it was enough to cultivate a huge team with superior strength. Soon, as the lid of the pot opened, the aroma came to the nose, and a tempting taste instantly filled the audience, causing countless people to swallow their saliva. Everyone's eyes turned to Mu Yun, as if waiting for his order. Look what I'm doing. Start absorbing crystal nuclei. Mu Yun waved his hand, signaling them to hurry up. Everyone was overjoyed when they heard this, and they took out the spiritual energy crystal nucleus one after another, and sat there cross-kneeled to absorb it. In less than 3 minutes, someone absorbed it, and then quickly came to the cauldron to start dry rice to replenish the nutrients needed by the body. For the next few hours, the manner was a lively scene. Husband, won't it be so troublesome for us to break through later? Chuan Tian looked at the busy people in front of her and couldn't help but ask, even if you eat white fruits, then you have to eat 10,000 pieces. My god. She really couldn't imagine how to eat 10,000 white fruits. Mu Yun smiled, touched her head, and said softly, don't worry, this is not a wooden powerhouse. With the improvement of the level of special energy of the wood system, the effect of the white fruit naturally becomes stronger. A third order wood powerhouse can produce a third order white fruit every day, and the nutrients contained in it are equivalent to 100 first order white fruits. However, it only contains a lot of nutrients, but it does not fight hunger. High-grade white fruit can be understood as a concentrated nutrient solution, and it is not that you can go 100 days without eating after eating one. Obviously impractical. This is why the wood psychic is so important in the last days. The reason why Mu Yun valued Suye's wood realm so much was also for this reason. After eliminating the corpse tied in the Z7 area and completely solving the hidden dangers of the base, Mu Yun will begin to cultivate the young ladies of the wood lineage, allowing them to create a steady stream of wealth for themselves. Hearing Mu Yun's explanation, Chuan Tian was abrupt. Okay, let's stop doing it and continue to mass produce third order green corpses. Myung patted Chuantian's shoulder and led her out while greeting the maid special combat group next to her. There are a total of 9 people this time, and the efficiency must be much faster than Myung and Chuantian. As for Coco, who was watching TV alone in her room, Miracle Girl season 5 aired, and she decided not to go out of the room without chasing the 5th season. Just as the group was about to leave, Fu suddenly ran over. "Sir, there is news from the military side." Saying that, he handed the phone over, and the screen was a scrolling group message. "I'll go, and a large wave of green corpses will be wiped out in one day." That's an exaggeration, right? I don't have a culture, and I go to the world in a groove. It's over. The military's face has been slapped. What is the military's reaction now? It is estimated that it is stupid, and sure enough, the master is in the people. 2 words less. Do you still want the military to rescue you? What are you afraid of? I can go to the Dragon Court. People are already on the way, and I will follow to fight monsters when I turn back. NIU wow. Take me if the eldest brother goes by the way. Women stay ID. Men are self-reliant. Jiangzhou B city official. Friend, since it is your own person, why be so fortat? It is better to work together to eliminate the corpse tide and save more survivors. What do you think? What do you mean? How did you become your own? Hey, don't say. You look at those weapons and ammunition in the Dragon Court. They have something to do with the military at a glance. Where do ordinary people get these equipment? I go, it makes sense. Could it be that the water washed the Dragon King temple and my own family beat my own family? I bet on a spicy strip. It must be an oolong. I bet half a catty. How? Looking at the news sent by the military, Myung was a little surprised. How did you become your own? What does this Yangchen mean? Whether it is their own people, find out if you check with your superiors. It is obvious that they can't beat the side. Is it to save the face of the military? That's why he said so in public. Well, it's a wonderful trick. It can not only save respect, but also ease the relationship between the two. Even if Myung's side does not admit it, he can also be said to be a state secret, so he can't say more and so on to prevaricate. It is worthy of being a hero who can establish the Dawn base city, and this trick is high. If that's the case, then I'll take care of it. Afu, just forget it. This mission is special and there is no comment. If any survivors want to join us, we are warmly welcome. Presumably, you have seen our strength before, and our Dragon Court base is very safe. Survivors who need to trade supplies can also come to us, but only when we clear the tide of corpses. Myung did not reveal his true identity. If someone regarded them as military personnel, this would have nothing to do with Myung. I didn't admit it anyway. You didn't ask whether you believe it or not. It has nothing to do with me. You'll figure it out for yourselves. Soon, the messages in the group began to scroll rapidly again. I bet right. A spicy strip. I just said, how can ordinary people achieve this level? The truth. Since the Dragon Court is also a force of the military, then I choose to join the Dragon Court. The car has turned around and is rushing towards the Dragon Court. The old driver took me. I'm a sister. He fuck off. Laozi hates the most is he upstairs +1. The news in the group kept refreshing. Looking at those comments, Myung smiled with satisfied hooked lips. It seems that everyone is quite knowledgeable. Oblivious. Looking at Myung smiling treacherously, Chuanshan silently poked him. You converge a little. Make it look like a villain. Ahem. Myung pretended to cough. Okay, let's continue to go. After returning the phone to Afu, the group drove away from the manor. Chapter 87. The group did not go far and stopped at a high-end community closest to the manor. Without Myung giving an order, everyone consciously rushed into the community with a rope. Just now, Myung had already told them the method of artificial third-order green corpses, and at this moment, all the women were very excited to start the hunting journey. You know, they have obtained more than 10,000 spiritual energy crystal nuclei before, and they are having a headache how to absorb them quickly. Now that a solution has finally been found, all the women are naturally full of energy. Myung and Chuantian were not idle, and joined the ranks of capturing green slaves. At the same time, the bases of the military district, Yang Chen was carefully pondering the message Mu Yun had just sent. Although it is not clear why the other party wants to close the survivors, he also refused the helping hand extended by his side. But one thing he knew very well was that this dragon court was definitely his own. Not only help them solve the tide of corpses, but also prepare to help them settle survivors, proper benevolent people. Even if he guessed wrong, this force is not a person from the central government, so he solved two big problems for himself at the other party, and he also made up his mind about this friend. After touching his chin and pondering for a moment, Yang Chen decided not to contact the other party for the time being, and first solved the problem on his side. The remaining 13 drones were all shot down, and then they had to rely on fighters as bait to lure the tide of corpses out of the city. Are you all ready? Standing up, Yang Chen shouted. The warriors immediately straightened their bodies. Report, sir. Get ready. Go. With Yang Chen's order, 5 military jeeps left the base and headed towards the Z1 area. There were only 20 people in this operation, but they were the 23rd order superpowers that Yang Chen had created with all his spiritual energy crystal nuclei. Everyone has about 8 times the physique of ordinary people, plus their special abilities. They may be able to retreat all over when facing the tide of corpses. In this, the loss of any one person was enough to make Yang Chen feel painful. Half an hour later, Yang Chen and the others arrived at the target area, and looking at the densely packed green slaves in the distance, he couldn't help but feel a tingling in his scalp. But he is a soldier. Protecting the people is his duty, no matter what the cost of this operation. He must grit his teeth and persevere. Follow me. With a low roar, Yang Chen led 20 heavily armed warriors to the other end from the side, bypassing the corpse tide. Since the main road was full of green slaves, and the rest of the road was covered with green vines, they had to abandon the car and use their legs to go around the front to lure the tide of corpses. The process of rushing was relatively smooth, and only some scattered green slaves were encountered, which were solved by them. After arriving at the destination, Yang Chen's face was solemn. Are you ready? Ready, sir. 20 people brushed in unison, looking solemn. Good. After a while I shouted, retreat. Everyone do not hesitate. There is hope for survival. Yang Chen's words fell, and he immediately began to act according to the plan discussed in advance. I saw one of the soldiers carrying a stereo, and suddenly the entire area echoed with deafening music. If you listen carefully, you will find that it is a BGM that belongs to Kyo Feng. Deng dun deng deng dun deng dun. The green slave, who had been wandering around aimlessly, suddenly heard this familiar melody and immediately rushed to the source of the sound like a cat smelling fishy, and even chased this song, even if he stepped on the corpse of his companion. Yang Chen immediately beckoned everyone to run outside the city. Wah, or a hoarse cry came from behind him, making the hearts of everyone who was running with all their strength tremble. After running for a while, the soldier carrying the stereo gasped, handed the stereo to the others, and continued to run. Their real danger is not the tide of corpses behind them, but the other green slaves in front of them who are attracted by the sound. These green slaves will slow them down and surround them. Sure enough, as time passed, more and more green slaves appeared on the road ahead, and Yang Chen had to slow down his speed and take action to solve these green slaves who were blocking their way. Suddenly, boom, the sound of gunfire and howls continued to resound in this silent suburb. They did not dare to stay. Once entangled by this group of green slaves, what awaited them was an endless tide of corpses. Roar! Suddenly, with a loud roar, a black shadow rushed out of the building next to the road and quickly and fiercely pounced on the soldier carrying the stereo. Bang! Yang Chen reacted extremely quickly, raised his hand, and pulled the trigger, shooting the opponent in the chest. Ding! The bullet was resisted by the vine. Yang Chen's pupils shrank suddenly, and he hurriedly turned the muzzle, and added a few more shots. Ding! Bite! Clang! This mutant green slave was extraordinary, and green vines flew quickly, forming an airtight protective wall in front of it. The bullet fired by Yang Chen could not penetrate the defense at all, but was entangled in vines, and ejected to the side. Damn it! Yang Chen cursed. His body began to turn into steel, and when he stepped on his feet, his figure shot out, and his fists mashed on the surface of the vine. Poof! The cracks on the vine were dense, and they instantly shattered and exploded, revealing the hideous face of the mutant green slave. Without the slightest hesitation, Yang Chen went up and kicked a flying kick on the head of the mutant green slave. The huge force burst out, and the head of the mutant green slave was directly kicked and sunken, lying limply on the ground. Raw, Hoa seeing that the corpse tied behind him was about to catch up, he didn't even have time to collect the crystal nucleus of the mutant green slave, so he pulled out his legs and ran. Suddenly, a heart-rending scream came, and he turned his head to look, but saw that a warrior was accidentally grabbed by a mutant green slave with a body wrapped around flames, and the entire arm was scorched in an instant, and his body was wrapped in raging flames. "Leave me alone, let's go." The warrior struggled and yelled. Yang Chen frowned. Go. At this time, if they went back to the rescue, it was likely that the entire army would be destroyed, and Yang Chen decisively ordered to continue to run for his life. The situation became more serious, and 2 more soldiers were killed by the mutant green slave who suddenly appeared. Yang Chen's heart was trembling. This is the main force of their base, and 3 people were sacrificed in less than half an hour. At the moment, there are at least 20 kilometers outside the city, and with their speed, they will definitely not be able to reach it in 2 hours. If these people really lose here, I'm afraid that their base will be greatly damaged. Nope. Can't go on. His eyes were blood red, and his heart began to retreat. Just as he was about to order the whole crew to abandon the stereo and retreat, an extremely cold chill hit. Ice powers? Yang Chen looked around in amazement, only to see that the surrounding environment had turned blue. The cold ice that froze everything spread towards them, not only the ground and the surrounding mutated green plants, but even the corpse tied behind them froze. What the hell is this? I can't move. This strange sight frightened everyone, and they panicked and wanted to leave the area, but as soon as they took a step, the ground was blocked by thick ice, and their lower bodies were directly frozen and stiffened in place. Chapter 88. Such a terrifying power is definitely not something that ordinary mutant green slaves can do. The corpse tied behind them suddenly stopped, as if there was something in front of them that made them fearful, and hesitated and did not continue to pursue. The scene was eerily quiet, with only BGM echoing around the stereo. Step. Trample. Stepping on. The sound of crisp footsteps came from the side of everyone, like a talisman, making everyone's hearts beat faster. Boom. A tall and slender figure slowly walked out from the demali. The girl's naked body exposed her ice blue skin, and her long silver white hair was densely covered with ice crystals, shining dazzling in the sunlight. There was no emotion fluctuation in her pure white eyes, and she crossed her arms over her chest, exuding a cold and evil aura. The white back has 5 ice blue vines, and there is a circle of sharp ice thorns on the top of the head, which looks like an ice crown. The crystal vine swayed in the wind, and one of the vines covered the girl's important parts, but it still faintly revealed a seductive luster. Obviously, this mysterious girl is not a human, but an unusual mutant green slave. As the ice woman approached, a strong sense of oppression came to her face. If Mu Yun was at the scene, he would definitely be able to recognize this ice queen who occupied half of Jiangzhou in her previous life. Mu Yun never expected that the birthplace of this terrifying corpse king was actually in B City, and if he knew about this, he would definitely spare no effort to strangle it in the cradle. Click, a clear cracking sound sounded, and the ice woman stopped and looked at the group of humans in front of her. The faint psychic intelligence told her that the creature in front of her was not a threat to her, but something delicious. The ice woman raised her right hand, and the vine torted violently, wrapping around the warrior's neck. Put. The feeling of suffocation hit instantly, and the warrior used the last bit of strength to spit out a few words with difficulty. The freezing cold air above the ice vine instantly froze the soldier's neck. Click. The sound of ice shattering sounded, and the neck suddenly broke. Before the scalding blood could be sprayed, it was frozen into ice slag, and fell to the ground. The ice woman opened her mouth to show her sharp teeth, and the vine rolled the frozen human head into the ice sculpture, and sent it to the ice woman's hand. The hideous and terrifying face came to the eyebrows of the human head and sniffed. It was this fluctuation, which belonged to the fluctuation of spiritual energy. The slender and sharp fingers pierced directly into the soldier's skull, and a white third-order energy crystal nucleus appeared in her palm, and at the same time, the soldier's head also exploded, turning into ice slag all over the ground. Swallowing the crystal nucleus, the ice woman licked her pale lips in satisfaction. The haze of death hung over the entire ranks, and the soldiers turned pale, sweat dripping down their foreheads and soaking their clothes. How on? Shoot. I don't know who shouted. Everyone seemed to have found hope, hurriedly raised the gun on their waist, and shot towards the ice woman in the distance. The ice woman stood still, letting the bullet hit her. The bullet hit the ice woman's ice blue skin, bursting out a large spark. Ding ding, a crisp sound echoed through the empty streets, and a thin layer of frost appeared on the surface of the ice woman's body, and bullets were embedded in the frost, but none of them could hurt her through the frost. After a while, all the bullets were exhausted, and the ice woman walked gracefully towards the direction where the human race was. Yang Chen's forehead sweated coldly. This is definitely not the power of a 4th order mutant green slave. At least it has a 5th order, or even higher. Looking at the ice woman who was already approaching, he gritted his teeth. Grenade ready. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. At such a close distance, even the shockwave generated by the explosion could blow them out. Even if it was just a scratch, it was fatal. But they were soldiers, and it was their duty to obey orders, so after a short hesitation, they still prepared according to Yang Chen's orders. Throw. Yang Chen shouted in a deep voice. Looking at the little black ball flying towards her, the ice girl instinctively felt a trace of jealousy, and directly told her that this thing was dangerous. Seeing the little black ball getting closer and closer, the ice woman manipulated the vine to wrap her body and form a solid armor. Boom. A huge collision sound sounded in her ears. A grenade exploded first, and the ice woman only felt a sharp pain coming, and the whole person took several steps backwards. Boom, huge flames rose into the sky, completely engulfing her figure. The impact of the explosion shattered the nearby solid ice, and the trapped people took the opportunity to break free. Although their heads were buzzing, and their bodies were not lightly injured, at least they could move. Retreat immediately and lose the stereo. Yang Chen roared, and ran outside the city without checking his injuries. In fact, there was no need for Yang Chen to remind him, and the rest of the people also began to flee one after another. Unfortunately, without the blessing of Kyo Feng's BGM, they lack an invincible buff. The smoke and dust dispersed, and the figure of the ice woman gradually emerged. The vine armor on her body had been blown up, her long hair was scattered, and her body was covered with deep bone scars, blood dripping, looking very miserable. However, all this could not resist her angry white pupils. Dark blue ice mist permeated, and the scars on her body healed quickly, as if there was a lack of energy, and the vines behind her had not been repaired. At the moment, the ice girl can't care about this, she just wants to tear those damn ants to shreds now. Swoosh, the figure of the ice woman turned into an afterimage, disappeared in the blink of an eye, and appeared in the fleeing crowd. One after another the sound of breaking the sky sounded, accompanied by wails and screams. The ice woman's attack was simple and brutal, and countless ice picks appeared out of thin air, piercing the crowd with a howling wind. Ah! Help me! The 7 soldiers were directly pierced into a sieve, and the others were terrified and ran frantically. Screams and pleas for mercy mingled, and blood flowed everywhere, staining the land red. The ice woman collected the crystal nuclei in their minds, and the momentum on their bodies gradually recovered, and the crystal vines behind them also grew again. Taking advantage of this precious moment in exchange for the lives of his teammates, Yang Chen and his group rushed wildly. But how could the speed of a 3rd order psychic be faster than a mutant green slave of at least the 5th order? Seeing that the ice woman was about to catch up, despair and fear filled everyone's hearts, and they seemed to see the end of their tragic death. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89. When night fell, Mu Yun returned with a full load of everyone. Today, more than 20,000 first order crystal nuclei were consumed, and 200 third order crystal nuclei were harvested. Of course, this is just the gain of Mu Yun and Xuantian. The maids had already transformed all the previous spiritual energy crystal nuclei into 110 third order crystal nuclei, which was enough for them to break through from the 3rd order to the 4th order. When they returned to the manor, they found excitement on the faces of everyone in the camp. After breaking through the third order, their strength increased greatly, and the strength of their abilities increased a lot. In the future, when facing mutated green slaves, they will not be so embarrassed. Boss. As soon as I entered the camp, I heard a respectful greeting. Mu-Yun nodded. HMM. Seeing Mu-Yun return, Fu brought more than a dozen grey-faced survivors to greet him. Sir, these people came this afternoon and hope to join us. Mu-Yun looked at the group of disheveled survivors. There were no old people and children, they were all young and middle-aged. 3 women of 23 or 4, the rest of whom were young men in their 20s and 30s. They were in poor physical condition, each with minor injuries, and looked rather miserable. But Mu-Yun knew that these people were worth recruiting. Those who dare to go out alone in the early apocalypse have relatively good courage and decisiveness. If he can cultivate it well, it will inevitably be a sharp sword blade under his hand in the future. It's just that loyalty remains to be examined. It's okay to stay, Mu-Yun asked. Hearing this, everyone quickly thanked excitedly. Thank you, leader, for taking you in. These people have already found out clearly, and they have seen the previous video, and the Dragon Court can be said to be the safest place in the entire B city. Even if the corpse tide breaks out, it is not afraid, and the Dragon Court has the ability to destroy it. Get up. Mu-Yun raised his hand. When everyone stood firm, he began to explain the rules. Mu-Yun gave them 3 choices. Either spend a certain amount of materials, and buy the right to live in the base, or work hard according to the arrangements of the base. Dragon Court is now in ruins, and a large number of jobs are missing, so they don't have jobs. Or join NIU Dazhuang's combat team, and go out of the city, to kill the green slaves. Of course, the base will provide the resources for those who join to break through the third order, and 40% of all subsequent harvests will belong to the base. After everyone listened, they did not hesitate to express their willingness to join NIU Dazhuang's combat group. Except for the 3 women, the remaining 12 chose to join the combat group. There is no other reason. Mu-Yun gave too much. That is a third order superpower, and now there are very few people in the outside world who have become ordinary superpowers, let alone third order. While the risks of going out are huge, the rewards are equally frighteningly high. They don't want to mess around with dead wages, they have to eat with their own hands, and try to earn points and crystal nuclei for more resources, so that they can survive in this apocalypse. As for handing over 40% of the income, high is a little higher, but it is also within the range of acceptance in their hearts, which is more reasonable. Mu-Yun was not surprised by this choice, and he directly spoke. Since you have made a decision, then you can't regret it. Everyone said yes in unison. Well, in that case, Afu, you arrange for them to break through tonight, and there will be a wave of corpses to deal with tomorrow. Would specialists too break through together tonight? Mu-Yun added another sentence. As soon as these words came out, others were immediately envious. The treatment of wood supernatural people is also too good. Planting fruit trees every day can get the resources of the base, and they can stay in the safe base. It's just lying down to win. The envious and jealous gazes of everyone fell on those woodline powers. The faces of the 20-odd young ladies were a little embarrassed. They could get the spiritual energy crystal nucleus that others couldn't get without doing anything, which made them feel a little ashamed in their hearts. Seeing this, the 3 newly joined women said that they also wanted to become woodline powers, but was rejected by Mu-Yun. Although he still had more than 900 green devil fruits in his hand, not everyone would give them. After bringing Coco, the little Nizzy, and planting the seeds of mind for the new joiners, it will be up to them to perform. If you perform well, you can become a water system, and if you perform well, you can awaken the wood system. He also instructed Afu to treat other survivors in the future as well. Mu-Yun adhered to the principle of Ning scoundrels, and wanted to ensure that the core personnel of the base were people who could be trusted. This is also thanks to Coco's skills, able to see through people's minds. In this way, Mu-Yun did not need to worry about the management loopholes of the base at all. By the way, due to the collective breakthrough of everyone today, Coco seems to have also been affected directly from the first order breakthrough to the second order superpower. It won't be long before he seems to be able to break through to become a third order powerhouse. I have to say that Keke really saves money for Mu-Yun. Touching Coco's soft hair, Mu-Yun took a sip of fragrance on her little face. As a result, Coco's face was full of disgust. "Uncle, your beard has pierced me." Coco covered her small face and protested. "Then uncle will shave." After speaking, Mu-Yun pinched the tip of Coco's small nose affectionately and returned to the bedroom with Chuantian. The old man really loves the little master. Fan Zioki looked at the back of the three people leaving and said with some envy, "How does Comrade Zioki also want to be pierced?" Zhanglan came up with a bad smile and teasingly patted Fan Zioki's butt. Fan Zioki, who was poked in the sore spot, immediately rounded his eyes. Who is rare. I tell you, oh, I'm not as hungry as you. I'm a pure goddess." With that, she ran away with a puff of smoke, leaving Zhongli and the others giggling. In the silent night, a crescent moon hangs in midair, and the bright moon spreads all over the earth, illuminating everything. The moonlight not only illuminated a dense tide of green corpses, but also a graceful queen with an ice crown on her head. While the ice woman raised her head to the sky and let out a roar, exuding cold air all over her body, and her feet stepped on the ice cubes, and moved rapidly in the darkness. On her route, the green corpses retreated one after another, and the slow green slaves who ran, were directly frozen into ice sculptures by the cold air around the ice woman. At this moment, the ice woman was very annoyed. That damn human actually disappeared under his nose. She tracked all day and still couldn't find anyone. Helpless, he had to let out an incompetent roar, venting the anger and irritability in his heart. Yang Chen fled. The price was the total destruction of his subordinates, which can be said to be a blessing in misfortune. In an abandoned warehouse, the dim light bulb flickered, which seemed a little strange, making people panic inexplicably. At this moment, Yang Chen was curled up and sitting in the corner, gasping for breath, while staring around guardedly. And his body can only be described as miserable. His clothes are broken, his body is covered with blood, and even some places are exposed. Not far away, the body of a green slave lay motionless on the ground, no longer breathing. He gritted his teeth and persisted for a long time until he confirmed that there was no danger around him for the time being. Then he breathed a sigh of relief and collapsed to the ground. Chapter 90. Because of excessive blood loss, Yang Chen's consciousness gradually became blurred, and his eyelids became heavier and heavier. Just as Yang Chen completely fell into a deep sleep, there was a sudden subtle noise outside the warehouse door. Vaguely, he seemed to hear human conversation. "Brother, there seems to be someone here." A slightly childish voice came. "Huh." Immediately after that, another deep male voice came. "Go and see." Immediately afterwards, two figures, one tall and one short, appeared outside the warehouse and slowly approached Yang Chen. The tall man held a short sword in his hand and looked around warily, while another thin girl clutched a dagger. When the two walked less than 2 meters away from Yang Chen, the tall man finally stopped. Immediately, he turned his gaze to Yang Chen, who was sleeping on the ground, frowning slightly. This guy was seriously injured and should have experienced a big battle. "Brother, do we want to save?" Hearing this, the tall man hesitated for a moment and finally nodded. Looking at this person's clothing, it must be a military person, and it doesn't hurt to save it. Howler. Saying that, the girl's palm emitted a soft white light and gently patted Yang Chen's body. In an instant, a faint layer of white fluorescence appeared on Yang Chen's body, and the injuries on his body quickly healed. Yang Chen's originally closed eyes trembled slightly and gradually opened, but what came into view were two strange faces. "Huh. Brother, this man is awake." The girl cried out in surprise. "Leave it alone, let's get him back first, so as not to attract other monsters." As he spoke, the tall man had already put away his short sword, picked up Yang Chen, and left the warehouse. Although Yang Chen was very puzzled in his heart, he couldn't do anything at the moment, so he could only let the tall man take him away. Early the next morning, Mu-Yun got up from the bed and rubbed his hazy sleepy eyes to wake up the drooling Chuantian and Coco, who ran to the end of the bed at an unknown time. Wash up and eat breakfast. Everyone in the base was ready to go and eliminate another wave of green corpses. Now that survivors have come to the base for refuge, there are people who need to keep the base running, and this time Afu and the young ladies of the water system have been left at the base. Coco also gave Afu to help take care of it. Then, the mighty team headed towards the Z7 area. In the car, Mu-Yun looked up at the cloudy sky and couldn't help frowning. He always felt as if something was going to happen today. What's wrong? Noticing Mu-Yun's abnormality, Chuan-Tian stepped forward and asked. The weather is a bit unusual. Mu-Yun shook his head and muttered. Chuan-Tian was stunned for a moment when he heard this and immediately revealed a worried look. Are you saying that there will be danger? I'm not sure. I hope I'm too sensitive. Mu-Yun sighed and said. Chuan-Tian did not continue to ask. After all, no one can say for sure what will happen in the last days. Along the way, Mu-Yun's brows never stretched, and he repeatedly thought about today's celestial phenomena in his heart. The crisis of the end times is much more than the green tide. Green slaves are non-renewable monsters that can be eliminated after they are destroyed. Although there are still a large number of green slaves 30 years after the previous life, as long as time permits, they can be cleaned up sooner or later. The real headaches of the end times are bizarre natural disasters, meteorites, black rain, red tides, extreme cold, earthquakes. You never know when a sudden natural disaster will befall you. The large bases that were destroyed by natural disasters, Mu-Yun alone knew no less than 10. Even he experienced it himself a few times. It was a meteorite the size of a house, and it was smashed directly into the base city where Mu-Yun was staying. If he hadn't broken through the king at that time and ran fast enough, I'm afraid his little life would have been gone. As for the base city with a population of 200,000, it was reduced to ruins overnight. Looking at the vision of the sky, Mu-Yun Lian thought of the black rain that appeared a year later. But how long has it been now? And it has only been 10 days since the green tide arrived. How can there be black rain? Mu-Yun would rather believe that this was just a thunderstorm in the summer. Otherwise the human world would definitely suffer heavy casualties. Just as Mu-Yun's thoughts were chaotic, the vehicle had already arrived in the Z7 area. City Lord, where are we going next? Niu Dazayan came to Mu-Yun's car window and asked. The title of City Lord was decided by everyone after some discussion yesterday. After all, it is always the boss's name, which is really a bit unusual. Anyway, the base city will definitely be established, and Mu-Yun will become the City Lord sooner or later, so this title does not hurt. You'll wait first. Mu-Yun was still not at ease, and decided to let Sister Lan make a perfect plan first. In case of a black rain attack, she could also deal with it in time. So, through the transmission of his mind, he informed Sister Lan of the thoughts in his mind. Everyone in the base was ordered to move quickly. After doing this, Mu-Yun was slightly relieved. However, it is still necessary to solve the corpse tide as soon as possible and go back early. In the Z7 area, the density of corpse tides is relatively large. As soon as he entered this area, Mu-Yun felt the rich smell of plant decay in the air. Looking at the dense green figures in the distance, there are at least a million by sight, which is more difficult than the Z6 area. However, this time, everyone was full of confidence, and with an experience and a breakthrough to the third order, their strong strength gave them strong confidence. Mu-Yun found a commanding point with a light car, and then everyone began to set up howitzers, dig ravines, and set traps. After everything was ready, everyone stood behind Mu-Yun. Fire! With Mu-Yun's order, rockets flew out with long flame tails. Boom boom boom. A huge explosion suddenly sounded, mushroom clouds rose up, and the earth shook violently. In an instant, the ground shook. The green corpses were attacked by grenades, killing and wounding countless people at once. Roar. Ho ho, the green corpse roared angrily, frantically rushing in search of the source of the sound. Mu-Yun waved his hand, and the second round of shells was loaded, and roared out again. Boom, boom. Huge explosions continued continuously, and a large number of green corpses were shattered. Blood and stump flew everywhere. After a long time, seeing more and more green corpses pouring in, Mu-Yun took a deep breath, and Nanwu Gatling Bodhisattva appeared again, shooting at the corpses. Tap da, tongues of fire spewed out, and green corpses fell to the ground one after another. While killing the enemy, he looked at the cloudy sky with his afterlight. Suddenly, his pupils suddenly shrank sharply. Oops. Chapter 91. The already cloudy sky became darker in an instant. Rolling dark clouds shrouded, lightning and thunder in the sky, and storms raged. The sun was completely obscured, the sky was dark, and large drops of rain poured down. This is not an ordinary rainstorm, but a black rain. The sticky black raindrops the size of soybeans fell on the ground and made a sound of poof poof, and then thick black smoke rose on the ground at a speed visible to the naked eye. The surrounding buildings, houses, ground, and everything contaminated by the black rain were instantly corroded into potholes and spread rapidly. Groove. What a thing! Niu Dazuan was startled. Hiss. It hurts. A man was dripped into 2 drops of black rain, his clothes were quickly corroded, and the capillaries on his skin were quickly red and swollen, and blood bubbles came out one after another, emitting a foul smell. This rain is strong sulfuric acid. Seeing this scene in front of him, Mu Yun's face changed greatly, and he quickly stopped everyone. Everyone retreat immediately, quickly, retreat quickly. Mu Yun shouted fiercely, took the lead in putting away the howitzer on the ground, and ignored the tide of corpses, and led everyone to run in the opposite direction. Mu Yun's words were like a dazzling empowerment, and everyone immediately understood the horror of this black rain, and quickly followed him to escape. Fortunately, they were all already third-order superpowers, with strong physiques, and could barely resist this sudden black rain. If ordinary people encounter it, they are afraid that they will be corroded by this rain in a few seconds, and even the bone dregs will not be left. At this time, the black clouds in the sky gathered thicker and thicker, as if a more terrifying offensive was brewing. Gradually, the rain began to intensify, and the storm was about to come. Mu Yun looked behind him. The corpse tide was still chasing, and the black rain was not affected by them in the slightest. Just like the mutated plants brought by the green tide, the vines of the green slave are wrapped in a special film, and ordinary water, fire, and sulfuric acid have no effect on the vines. The green slaves instinctively wrap themselves in vines, revealing only a pair of keen ears to find their way. Damn it. Mu Yun couldn't help but burst into foul language. They must find a suitable safe area to hide, while also finding a way to escape the tide of corpses behind them. City Lord, you take your brother and go first, I'll stay behind. Niu Dazuan suddenly ran to Mu Yun's side and said firmly. Although this Niu Dazuan is usually a little stupid, he is never vague at critical moments, especially when he treats Mu Yun. He is even more loyal, and will never shirk. Look down on me, haven't you reached a desperate situation? You don't need to sacrifice. Mu Yun snorted coldly. However, if you don't solve the problem of the corpse tide, even if you find a suitable shelter, you will be swallowed by the corpse tide. Niu Dazuan persuaded eagerly. Mu Yun glanced at him in surprise. When did you become so smart? Ugh. Niu Dazuan was stunned, looked at Mu Yun stupidly, and only after a long time did he hold out a sentence. City Lord, are you praising me? Less nonsense. Mu Yun didn't bother to pay attention to him, took out the iPad, and looked at the nearby map. There should be a river nearby. Suddenly, Mu Yun's eyes lit up, and he exclaimed excitedly. He raised his hand and pointed in the direction to the right. Everyone follow me. Target Langboi River. Langboi River is the widest inner city river in the northern suburbs of B City, bordering Blue Bay, which is 50 meters wide and more than 20 meters deep, and the river has abundant water. If everyone blows up the bridge, they will definitely be able to get rid of the green corpse tide, and even achieve a counterattack. Boom. There was a sudden burst of thunder in the sky. Immediately afterwards, the pouring rain fell instantly, and a large amount of black rain attacked everyone. An invisible ripple spread, the absolute realm unfolded, and the semicircular shield enveloped everyone, blocking these black rains with extremely corrosive power. The domain range was spread by Mu Yun to the maximum, that is, within a radius of 30 meters. This was a great drain for Mu Yun, and the spiritual energy in his body was rapidly declining. 15 minutes later, beads of sweat oozed from Mu Yun's forehead, and his face turned slightly white. Obviously he couldn't last long. Even though he held 3 third-order spiritual energy crystal nuclei in his left hand to quickly replenish the consumed spiritual energy, Mu Yun still felt struggling. Husband. Chuan Tian and the others looked at Mu Yun worriedly. If my domain disappears, the rest will depend on you. Mu Yun instructed softly. Good. Chuan Xian nodded heavily. She understood what Mu Yan meant. In the tacit understanding, the two cooperated very well, and there was no need to say more. The group continued to move forward, and after 10 minutes, the spiritual energy in Mu Yan's body completely disappeared, and the open field suddenly contracted sharply. Just as the dark rain was about to fall on everyone, a golden light emerged in Chuan Tian's hand, and the defensive light in the 5-colored light bloomed and attached to everyone. The black rain fell on the defensive barrier, and it actually made a noise, and was blocked, and could not advance. But Chuan Tian's consumption is also huge. Acting on hundreds of people at the same time, the energy in her body lasted for a maximum of 10 minutes. This time was enough for them to reach the Longbei River. Finally, 5 minutes later, a 50-meter long arch bridge spanning the river appeared in front of everyone's eyes, and Mu Yan led everyone to cross the bridge smoothly. The corpse tied behind him was already close at hand. Niu Daseong did not hesitate to turn around immediately, and the skill seismic technique was directly released. In an instant, the entire river began to tremble, and the waves churned. Although only 30 meters away was shaking, it was powerful enough for him to collapse the arch bridge. The others were not idle, and took out a dozen grenades, and threw them at the middle of the bridge. SHHH. A series of grenade explosions sounded, and the arch bridge broke in response, stirring up a splash several feet high. The dense green slaves did not stop there, and still persevered towards the other side of the river. The ending speaks for itself. Countless green slaves fell into the river like dumplings, splashing countless splashes. Not only that, the river water had long been polluted by the black rain and turned into dilute sulfuric acid, and the corpses fell into the black water, and those green slaves immediately howled miserably, and bursts of blue smoke rose all over their bodies. The reaction of concentrated sulfuric acid with water also produces a lot of heat energy, and at this moment the river water is crunching and boiling bubbles. Although the concentration of sulfuric acid at the moment is not enough to kill them, high temperatures can cook them. Over time, the concentration of sulfuric acid in the water gradually increases, and the corpses of these green slaves will gradually be corroded and decomposed, leaving behind the spiritual energy crystal nuclei in their minds. Roar. Ho ho, ho woo. Seeing the green slave who screamed bitterly and was submerged in the black water, Mu Yan breathed a sigh of relief. Fan Zioki also patted her flat chest and let out a long sigh of relief. I'm scared to death of the baby. I thought I was going to explain it here today. Don't take it lightly. The last thing that is not lacking in the last days is accidents. What if we run into it? Healing frowned and warned. Lord City Lord, shall we go find a place to hide from the rain next? Zhongli asked with a worried face. No, we are not going anywhere. I have a bold idea. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth hooked an evil smile. Chapter 92. Ding. Boom. Bang. A pile of steel was taken out by Mu Yan, and he immediately ordered everyone to build a simple large iron shed. Several sheets of iron cover were placed on the roof of the shed, and the dense raindrops crackled on the iron sheets. Chuan Tian's magical energy also disappeared at this moment due to the exhaustion of energy. Iron and concentrated sulfuric acid do not react at room temperature. When iron and concentrated sulfuric acid are in contact at room temperature, they will react on the surface to form a dense oxide protective film to prevent concentrated sulfuric acid from continuing to react with iron. Only when heated, iron and concentrated sulfuric acid accelerate the reaction. The reaction equation is 2 Fe plus 6 HSO, concentrated, equals Fe, so, plus 3 So plus 6 Ho. After doing this, Mu Yan ordered to start hunting the corpse tied on the other side. Not only the corpse tied in the Z7 region on the opposite side, but even the corpse tied Mu Yan in other areas was ready to catch up. A year later, the green slave had already evolved to a certain extent, and even if he did not use vines to defend against the corrosiveness of black rain, he already had quite strong defensive power. As a result, the human race, which had gradually gained a foothold, was once again in a weak position. A large number of defensive buildings were destroyed, water sources were directly polluted, and many weak survivors were directly killed. In the midst of the chaos, the power of mankind has plummeted. But in this life, interesting things happen. Originally, the green tide was followed by an extremely hot natural disaster, but unexpectedly, a black rain suddenly came, which caught all this by surprise. The destruction of the water source in advance will definitely lead to a skyrocketing value of drinking water, and what interesting stories will happen in the future even Mu-Yun, a reborn, can no longer understand. The most important point is that the black rain at this moment can cause terrifying damage to the green slave, which is an excellent time. There must be a silver lining in the midst of natural disasters. Mu-Yun saw through the key point of this natural disaster at a glance. If he could take this opportunity to pocket all the spiritual energy crystal nuclei of City B, the entire city would be controlled by himself by that time. Now, this Longbei River is Mu-Yun's best way to deal with the green corpse tide. Click. Dense gunfire continued to sound, and black bullets rained down on the opposite bank. The purpose is not to kill the green slaves, but to attract more green corpses. Attracted by the sound of gunfire, a large number of corpses poured in from the other side of the river, and for a while, the river was full of densely packed corpses. The body was smoking black smoke, which gradually decomposed into a pool of black water under the corrosion of dilute sulfuric acid, and merged into the river water. A strong stench filled the air, and everyone frowned to hold back the nausea in their stomachs, desperately firing and strafing. At this moment, everyone had already understood Mu-Yun's thoughts, and the excitement on their faces could not be concealed at all, and they all poured bullets towards the opposite bank. One by one, the crystal clear spiritual energy crystal nuclei were decomposed with the corpse, and all sank to the bottom of the lake. Just wait for the black rain to end, and find a way to drain the river. Well, it seems a bit difficult, but you can send a gold-based supernatural like Zhang Lan with stealing skills to go into the water to salvage. As long as the mind does not slip, there are always more ways than difficulties. But now there is a problem, that is, as the rain grows, the originally calm Longbei River gradually begins to flow. This means that the nuclei under the water may be washed away by the water. Mu-Yun and Chuantian were fully absorbing spiritual energy at the moment to accelerate the restoration of energy in their bodies. 20 minutes later, the two opened their eyes. Dazuang, here is left to you to be responsible. Zhongli, you pay attention to watch around. Be careful not to be attacked by old six. Mu-Yun ordered. Yes, City Lord. X2 Mu-Yun turned to Chuantian and said, let's go. Nodding, Chuantian's defensive golden light enveloped the two, and then left the iron borin and walked downstream. Without going far, the two stopped 50 meters from the bridge. Husband, what are we going to do next? Build a. Chuanshan blinked. What did she hear just now? Builder? Just the two of us? Mu-Yun shook his head. To be precise, it's just me. This. Don't worry. Mu-Yun reached out and patted her shoulder, revealing a confident smile. Your husband can endure a lot. Although Chuantian was still a little worried, she chose to believe Mu-Yun. After all, this man had never disappointed her. So what do we do next? Chuantian asked. Look at me. Saying that, Mu-Yun's domain expanded again, but this time it only maintained a 10-meter range, which could save the consumption of spiritual energy. Immediately afterwards, he took out several huge barbed wire, which are only used to build large buildings, and used to pour into the walls to strengthen them. Previously, he hoarded a lot in the name of building a shopping mall, which was enough for Mu-Yun to create a huge base city. Now for the sake of massive amount of spiritual energy crystal nuclei, Mu-Yun is ready to use some of them first. Several sheets of barbed wire of 3 meters by 10 meters were suspended in midair in Mu-Yun's domain. Borrow your red hot light and use it. Ah, you wouldn't want me to be a welder, would you? Smart. Mu-Yun gave a thumbs up, showing 8 white teeth on his face, and a teachable expression. The corners of Chuantian's mouth twitched slightly. His husband was really a ghost. No way. Chuantian had to turn into an electric welder, and the red light shot wildly against the iron mesh. Sparks splashed. Very professional. After a while, the barbed wire was welded by Master Chu into a large iron net of 21 meters by 10 meters. Then Mu-Yun took out 6 eye-shaped steel bars, and gave Chuantian a you-know expression. Alas, with a long sigh, she was a little tired. Magnetic under Chuantian's professional welding, Mu-Yun obtained 2 24-meter long steel bars. Seeing this, Chuantian understood. Without Mu Yun's words, she consciously welded the steel bars to both ends of the barbed wire. Thus, a 10-meter long and 21-meter high interception iron net was completed. This is the final step. Mu Yun's absolute domain range is directly driven to the maximum. The depth of the Langui River is 20 meters, and Mu Yun's domain range is 30 meters, which is completely capable of driving the interception iron net into the bottom of the lake. The extra part of the steel bar is inserted right into the depths of the ground, firmly fixing the iron net to the bottom of the river. The extra meter of the iron net just exposes the surface of the river, so that even the bodies floating on the surface of the river will not be washed away. The Langui River is 50 meters wide, and one net is obviously not enough. While absorbing the psionic crystal nucleus, the two continued to make interception iron nets. With great effort, the task was finally completed. 5 10-meter long interception nets entered the bottom of the river one by one, successfully sealing off the entire section of the river. Some people will definitely ask, how did the iron network in the center of the river penetrate the bottom of the river, and the distance between the fields is not enough? Mu Yun can fly in the field. It's as simple as that. Chapter 93. After doing this, the spiritual energy in the bodies of the two was almost exhausted, and they hurriedly returned to the iron boron, and began to absorb the crystal nucleus, to restore the spiritual energy. Looking at the time, it was already 12 noon. Yang Yunan rubbed her stomach. Lord City Lord, when can I open the meal? I'm starving to death. Jump. Zhongli directly gave the little girl a pop. You can't be big or small to adults. Yang Yunan touched her head and muttered pitifully, but I'm really hungry. I'm hungry and have no strength. Let's all stop and make a fire to cook. After speaking, Mu Yun took out a few large pots and various foods. Yang Yunan's eyes lit up, and she immediately leaned over to help wash the vegetables and cut the meat. Seeing this, the rest of the people also stopped shooting and came to help boil water for cooking. Soon, the aroma of the meal filled the air, overshadowing the unpleasant smell of decay around and seducing everyone's taste buds. Yang Yunan was already hungry, and as soon as the meal was placed, she couldn't wait to pick up the chopsticks and eat it. What a fragrance. Yang Yunan couldn't help but praise. While everyone was enjoying the food, the military base was already in chaos. Their commander, Yang Chen, had been out of touch with 20 soldiers for more than 24 hours, and what that meant was self-evident. Not only that, the military tents on the football field in the sports center were destroyed by the sudden black rain. There were a lot of living materials stored in the tent, and when the black rain came, it was almost completely destroyed. A large number of soldiers risked their lives to rescue them, but to no avail. Even if more than 50 soldiers were sacrificed, only 10% of the materials were rescued. These supplies may only be enough for the survivors in the base to survive for a week, and if this black rain continues, they are likely to starve to death. Inside a lounge, the survivors have all been accommodated in the underground parking lot and indoor gymnasium. According to the report, a total of 57 soldiers were killed this time, 83 survivors, 30 soldiers were seriously injured, 132 survivors were seriously injured, and the lightly wounded could not be counted, and more than 300 were expected. Faced with such a grim situation, the faces of Adjutant Zhang Di and Chief of Staff Shen Liang were extremely solemn, and Shen Liang asked in a deep voice, "Can the satellite signal be maintained?" It's okay for now, but the city's power supply system was damaged after the black rain, and the equipment to communicate with the central government was temporarily unavailable. Now immediately restore the power grid of the base, calm the masses, contact the central government as soon as possible, and request rescue. Yes, Chief of Staff. The soldier turned to leave, but Shen Liang sighed. Alas, how could there be such a disaster? Zhang Di also smiled bitterly. Who knows? The two were silent for a moment, and then continued to discuss how to deal with it. Although they all know that with the current situation, they will not be able to wait for rescue, but since there is hope, they must strive for it, even if the final result is not satisfactory, but at least they must do their best to fight for it. At this moment, someone suddenly ran in. Chief of Staff, Adjutant Zhang, there is news of the regiment commander. Hearing this, the two were overjoyed in their hearts and quickly walked over. Old Yang is back. Was he injured? The soldier shook his head, his tone slightly excited. No, it's in the survivor group, and the regiment commander said that he is fine now, and he will return as soon as the black rain stops. The two immediately breathed a sigh of relief, and Zhang Di patted the soldier's shoulder. Hard work on you. Not hard. The soldier smiled and then retreated. Shen Liang sat on the chair and kneaded his eyebrows with a tired expression. Fortunately, old Yang is fine. I finally heard good news today. Zhang Di bowed his head slightly and then looked at the sky outside the window. His expression was a little solemn. Now I hope this black rain can pass quickly. Somewhere in City B, in a gym. Yang Chen returned the phone to the girl in front of him. Thank you. Nothing. Chen Zi took the phone and showed Yang Chen a light smile. By the way, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Chen Zi. Chen Zi stretched out his finger and pointed at the muscular man on the side. This is my brother, Chen Feng. Not long after Yang Chen woke up, he took the mobile phone to report that he was safe and then carefully looked at the two people who saved his life in front of him. The girl is wearing a loose sportswear, a ponytail is very capable, her fair skin is shining faintly, and there is a sweet smile on the corner of her mouth, giving people a warm and comfortable feeling. The young man beside her looked cold and arrogant, as if everyone owed him money. However, the young man was very burly, and his strong muscles raised his clothes high, and the place where they were at the moment was obviously a muscular man who exercised regularly. My name is Yang Chen. Thanks to your help last night, I wrote down this kindness, and I will definitely repay it in the future. Yang Chen said solemnly. Chen Feng bowed his head slightly. It's just a matter of raising your hand. It's not enough to hang your teeth. Unlike Chen Feng's indifference, Chen Zi was enthusiastic. My brother is more sullen. You don't have to care. Nor, are you from the military? Yang Chen nodded and did not hide it. That's right. I'm an officer of the B City Army. Wow. Chen Zi's eyes widened in surprise and he looked at him with adoration. It's still an officer. Brother, we saved a big man this time. Chen Feng was also slightly stunned, and the look in his eyes when he looked at Yang Chen became different. Yang Chen, the 40-year-old uncle, did not feel embarrassed. When the black rain outside is over, you can go to my base to live. I'm very safe there. Great. Chen Zi clapped his hands happily. Brother, so that we don't have to worry about those monsters. Looking at his sister with a happy face, Chen Feng didn't say anything. His heart is not interested in the so-called military base. His strong strength coupled with his sister's magical healing ability, Chen Feng believes that, even if he does not rely on the military, the two can live very dashingly in the last days. But since my sister likes it, let it go with her. In this way, the three important personnel of the future Sunrise base officially met. The gears of fate roll again. Whether the three of them will be swallowed up by power and ambition this time, no one knows. Chapter 94. Inside the estate. Originally, Suye was leading the wooden supernatural to produce white fruits in the back garden of the castle, but a sudden black rain destroyed the fruits of their labor today. If this can be born, the harvest is a third order white fruit, which is one of the most needed materials for the base at this stage. It's a pity that a few hours were all for nothing. Not only that, but there are several young ladies who have been contaminated by black rain, and their clothes are corroded. The key is that concentrated sulfuric acid burns their fair skin, and if they do not clean up the wound in time, I'm afraid that they will leave scars. It's really bad. God, why is this like this? Can't we cultivate the fruit smoothly? One of the young ladies complained a little angrily. Okay, quickly find Xiaoning to help treat it, so as not to drain the wound. Everyone dispersed, leaving Suye still standing at the door of the back garden, staring at the white fruit that had withered and fallen on the ground in a daze. The people in the castle are very busy. Sister Lan is directing everyone to strengthen the castle, fixing materials such as iron plates and steel plates to the roof and exterior walls of the castle. Fortunately, Mu Yun notified Sister Lan in advance and strengthened the roof of the castle in advance, otherwise the only building in the base would be destroyed. Langboi Riverside. After eating and drinking, everyone was refreshed. City Lord, shall we continue next? Niu Dazhan touched his bulging belly and asked. Continue. We don't know when this black rain will end. Once it stops, the high temperature after the reaction of concentrated sulfuric acid with water will disappear, and the sulfuric acid will be slowly diluted, and then there will be no way to deal with the corpse tide. Mu-Yun said. The city lord really knows a lot. Niu Dazuang smiled cheekily. The rest of the people also nodded approvingly. How can these social people who came out to work hard very early know the truth, that they are not afraid to learn mathematics, physics and chemistry well, and go south and north? Now we need to replan. The corpse tide in the Z7 area is easy to deal with, but the other areas are too far away from this side, and we need to find a way to lure the corpse tide over. Mu-Yun's words were recognized by everyone. City Lord, what do you say to do? I listen to you. Niu Dazuang immediately expressed his position. If I knew what to do, I would have given the order directly. What meeting to waste time? Mu-Yun glared at him angrily. Originally, Niu Dazuang didn't say this. Everyone might still think in their hearts about how to attract the corpse tide, so that Mu-Yun could also peek at everyone's thoughts, and then put on a thoughtful appearance and forcibly pretended to be forced. But as soon as Niu Dazuang finished speaking, the others immediately echoed. Yes, yes, City Lord, you say, we have no words. That is, the City Lord has always been countless, and we believe in the City Lord. Mu-Yun, you can't have your own opinions. Looking at the expectant gazes of the people around him, the corners of Mu-Yun's mouth twitched. It's just that, if it doesn't work, you can only use the most stupid way. Seeing that everyone was waiting for his orders, Mu-Yun took out a map and spread it on the table. Next, we divided into 3 teams, and Niu Dazuang continued to lead people to guard here to attract the tide of corpses. Chuan Tian and I each led teams to the Z5 and Z8 areas to attract the tide of corpses. Specific actions, first this, then this, then this, and finally. Mu-Yun simply standardized the task and then added. Remember, this operation must be safe. It's okay if the mission can't be completed, but the person must give me back. Speaking of this, Mu-Yun's face became serious. Everyone claimed yes, and quickly divided the work according to the plan. The first is to create tools to move freely in the black rain. The car is obviously scrapped, although the exterior metal and glass can effectively isolate the corrosion of black rain, but the tires cannot. And now the road is potholes. Even if the black rain ends, this situation may not be suitable for driving. Therefore, the next thing can only rely on the number 11 bus. Mu-Yun took out a large pile of metal materials and cooperated with Chuan Tian, an electric welder, to create 30 umbrellas. A ring of iron hanging from the edge of the umbrella can firmly wrap the person under the umbrella. In order to facilitate the observation of the surroundings, 4 windows were opened around the umbrella and sealed with glass. In this way, if you are careful, you can move freely in the black rain. To be on the safe side, everyone tied steel sheets to exposed parts such as arms, knees, and shoes. After making all these preparations, the two held up an umbrella and walked towards their respective designated destinations. The rain fell on the iron umbrella and made a crackling sound, but this did not cause harm to the people under the umbrella, and everyone was relieved to see this. According to Mu-Yun's plan, each area sent 30 people, in teams of 2, to arrive at the designated place, to place the time bomb, and evacuate the scene. Through the movement generated by 15 fixed point blasts, the corpse tide was lured to Langbei River little by little, even if it only reached the Z7 area, and the last distance was easy to handle. Chuan Tian went to the Z8 area, and if it went well, it only took 1 round of blasting to complete the task. But Mu-Yun's side is more difficult. After all, the distance from the Z5 area to Z7 is relatively far, and 2 rounds of bombing may be required. That is, each group needs to place time bombs in 2 locations, and it takes 30 blasts to make the tide of corpses enter the designated location. In peacetime, this task is not very difficult, but at the moment the black rain is pouring, and everyone cannot fight in this environment at all. It's good to encounter ordinary green slaves who are left behind. You can avoid them by running faster, but if you encounter mutated green slaves, it will be troublesome. The mission was risky, but the rewards were just as staggering. The end times are cruel, and only by working hard to survive Can you have the opportunity to become stronger, change the status quo, and break free from the threat of the end times? Mu-Yun did not dare to assert how long this black rain would last, but Mu-Yun knew very well that the appearance of black rain prevented humans from becoming stronger. Green slaves, on the other hand, are the opposite. The devil fruit is growing every day, and the number of mutated green slaves and second order green slaves and third order green slaves will increase. In the long run, if you don't fight hard, it's no different from waiting for death. So, this time, Mu-Yun decided to take a chance. Soon, Mu-Yun's group arrived at the first designated place. One of the 15 umbrellas leaves the group, prying open a shop gate and entering to clear the green slaves and set up bombs. 14 umbrellas remained. In the shady and dilapidated city, this strange team walked silently on the streets without saying a word. The few green slaves that occasionally appeared were solved by Yan Yunan, who was holding an umbrella with Mu-Yun. Under a few ice picks, the green slave directly killed Huangquan. Chapter 95. As time passed, the group passed by the second blasting site, and the team did not stop to move on. This is reserved for a group of responsible locations, 2 locations per group, which is the plan that was set up before. The rain of the black rain continued unabated, and the rain fell on the ground with a popping sound, and the earth was instantly corroded, emitting black smoke with a sour smell. The rain was too strong, and there was black smoke, and the vision was very blurry. The speed of the team is slow. I don't know when. Only 7 of the original 14 umbrellas remained, and the journey was already halfway through. Suddenly, there was a noisy shout ahead, sounding like someone was fighting fiercely with a green slave. What's going on? Mu-Yun frowned and looked up in the direction where the voice came from, but because the sky was dark and the black smoke was thick, he couldn't see the specific situation at all. I only vaguely saw a few fiery red figures shuttling and flickering through the ruins, and I couldn't even see it if I didn't look closely. Be careful, there are enemies ahead. Through the transmission of his thoughts, Mu-Yun said to everyone behind him, "Received." X-15 Mu-Yun led everyone to move forward quietly and soon approached the fighting area ahead. Everyone could barely see the situation in the field. 6 men and 4 women, all of them were superpowers. But their rank is not high, only the aura of 1 man and 1 woman has reached the level of the second order. At this moment, the group is hiding under a half-collapsed house, fending off the attack of a group of green dogs. The most striking thing is the first giant dog covered in flames. Judging from the appearance, it should be only mutated Aha. Aha's physique has grown to 2 meters tall, with sharp teeth, extremely hard claws, amazing attacks, and most importantly, red flames wrapped around their bodies. The back has 5 thick red vines, each of which has a blazing flame burning on it. This is third order mutant dog. Mu-Yun raised his eyebrows slightly. City Lord, are we going to make a move? Yan Yunan asked softly, but her eyes were fixed on the battle situation. After a little thought, Mu-Yun ordered Zhang Lan to test it out to see if he could solve this mutant Aha. Mu-Yun didn't like to be nosy, but the position of this group of green dogs was exactly on the plan line, and in order to avoid accidents in the plan, Mu-Yun still decided to strangle the danger in the cradle first. The few people who were struggling to resist the attack of the green dog also discovered the strange team supporting the umbrella at this moment. But they didn't dare to shout loudly, and the group was smart enough to know that it would attract more monsters around. When Zhang Lan turned into a steel man and rushed towards mutant Aha, they were happy in their eyes and knew that it was the other party who extended a helping hand. Zhang Lan rushed to the dogs, kicked his legs on the ground, and the whole person jumped up in the air and slammed into the mutant dog. While the mutant Aha screamed, and the flames on his body instantly extinguished a large area. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Zhang Lan clamped Aha's neck with both feet. His right arm was stuck in the dog's mouth, and his left fist smashed on its head with all his strength, and mutant Aha's head suddenly sunken. Raw, the other 2 green-skinned dogs immediately pounced. When they saw this, Zhang Lan quickly let go of her hand and jumped away. The 2 dogs pounced, and as soon as they stood firm, they heard a roar behind them, and when they turned their heads, they were startled. The mutant Aha, who had already been knocked down, actually got up and roared at them. "Wang! A scorching flame erupted from the mouth of the mutant and the two green-skinned dogs hurriedly dodged, and the tongue of fire went straight to Zhang Lan with a violent high temperature. Boom. Zhang Lan raised his arms to block the oncoming pillar of fire, but his body was shaken by the shockwave, and he fell to the ground in embarrassment. She gritted her teeth to hold back the sweetness that welled up in her throat, rolled over and jumped up from the ground, pressed her palm against her chest, took a few deep breaths to calm her disordered breathing, and rushed towards the mutant again. Mutant was obviously also angry. It let out a low roar, opened its mouth, and spewed a flame towards Zhang Lan, and at the same time the flame vine behind it swept over. Although Zhang Lan is a steel man, the high temperature of the flame is still hot and painful, and she quickly dodged to the side and narrowly avoided this attack. As if recognizing her, Mutant saw her dodge, immediately adjusted his posture, and the fire vine flung it violently. Caught off guard, Zhang Lan was rolled up, her body rotated in the air a few times, and then fell to the ground. Boom. HMM. Zhang Lan snorted, feeling a hot pain in his chest, and his bones seemed to be shattered. Sister Zhang Lan Yan Yunan exclaimed when she saw this. A carp rolled around. Zhang Lan quickly got up and waved his hand to signal that he was fine. Mu Yan did not ask people to help. He found that, although the maid's fighting methods were decisive and fierce enough compared to ordinary people, their combat experience and methods against the enemy were really clumsy. Relying entirely on their powerful physique and abilities, their attacks can bring damage to enemies, but their efficiency is really pitifully low. When encountering this mutant beast of the same level, various defects are revealed. Mu Yan hopes that she can grow from this kind of actual combat. After all, there is still a long way to go, and if they do not have certain combat skills, I'm afraid it will be difficult for them to survive. Seeing Zhang Lan rushing up again, the rest of the maids were anxious. This time, she learned well, knowing that her strength was not enough for the thick-skinned mutant to kill him. So he began to deal with it, looking for its weaknesses, and waiting for an opportunity to attack. Mutant is very agile, but Zhang Lan's reaction is not bad, and the two of them actually fought for a while. Suddenly, Zhang Lan's mind remembered a prompt from Lin Ming. Think about your dog's weaknesses. Zhang Lan's eyes lit up, and Tang Dao came out of its sheath, and went straight to his abdomen. Mutant also seemed to sense the crisis, and took a sharp step back, and then it opened its mouth, and a hot fireball blurted out, shooting straight at Zhang Lan. This fireball was amazingly powerful, but Zhang Lan had expected it, and when the fireball flew in front of her eyes, she dodged sideways, and the fireball grazed the corners of her clothes, and the hot temperature burned Zhang Lan's skin with tingling. But fortunately, after the fireball passed by, her weapon plunged directly into the waist of Mutant Whoosh. Mutant was in pain, raised his head and hissed, and then waved his paws wildly, trying to grab Zhang Lan. At this time, Zhang Lan held the handle of the knife and slashed fiercely, cutting off the Mutant Zeng. Blood sprayed, and the huge body of Mutant fell to the ground with a bang. Seeing this scene, those mutant wolves noticed the death of their leader and suddenly became manic. Whoosh, the mutant dog group let out a howl, and then rushed towards Zhang Lan in unison. These ordinary first order green dogs were not afraid of Zhang Lan of the third order. She didn't even need to use any weapons, and with her strong physique and brute force alone, she beat the green dog to the ground. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96. Under the stunned expressions of a group of people, Zhang Lan dug out the spiritual energy crystal nucleus and quickly returned to his umbrella. After lifting the steel, the skin on the body was a little red and tingling. After all, after staying in the black rain for too long, an oxide layer formed on the surface of the skin, and after restoring the original flesh, it became this look. Pain. Zhang Lan grinned, took out a bottle of Yunnan white ointment from his backpack, and applied it on his body. The strong physique made the human metabolism accelerate, and the hot skin began to recover quickly. After all, it was only a small injury, and it would not take long to recover. My name is Zheng Mingji, thank you for saving your life. The young man at the head stood under the half-collapsed house and thanked everyone. "It's okay, you guys hurry up. There will be a large number of corpses here later, and if you continue to stay here, you will definitely die." Muyun reminded, "By the way, corpse tide? Wouldn't you?" Hearing this word, the faces of several men and women changed slightly. Zheng Mingji took a deep breath and looked at Muyun seriously. "Is the news true? I don't have time to joke with you. How are we going to trust you?" A pure-looking girl next to her asked. "Believe it or not." After that, Muyun ignored them and left directly with the team, leaving Zheng Mingji and others hesitant under the ruins. "Brother Ji, what should we do?" Zheng Yuan tugged on Zheng Mingji's clothes and asked with a slightly flustered look in her eyes. Zheng Mingji frowned and thought for a moment. "Let's go. Anyway, the shelter has collapsed and we can only die if we continue to stay here." "That, okay then." Zheng Yuan nodded and agreed, although she was still afraid in her heart, but now there was no choice. "Matt, I don't know which dog they built the tofu dregs project. The house will collapse. That is, otherwise it would not have attracted this group of monsters because of too much movement. Alas, it's a pity that Liu Bei and Ahu died. They are both my best brothers." Several other men and women complained, but Zheng Mingji did not speak, but led everyone to find a cover that could withstand the black rain and prepare to leave the place immediately. "City Lord, why don't you bring the group of people back to our base just now?" After all, Yan Yunan was still young and asked with some incomprehension. "I see that they are all superpowers, and if they can be brought over, they will definitely be able to help." "Huh? Woo over?" Muyun shook his head and said meaningfully, "Since that group of people are all superpowers, it means that there is a powerful figure in the team who is as prescient as me and has hoarded a lot of fruits in advance. This kind of person will not choose to be subservient, and there is no point in bringing it back. The most important thing is that there is a problem with their power level. Since they are all able to awaken 10 superpowers, which means that there are definitely a lot of devil fruits hoarded by Zheng Mingji, then why are there only 2 second-order superpowers? Why?" Yan Yunan blinked, her head full of question marks. "In order to control the strength of the people below, they will not surpass themselves and consolidate their position in the team. This is an ambitious man." "So it is." Yan Yunan nodded, as if she understood something. "Lord City Lord really knows a lot. You're still too young." Muyun said softly. "One day you will understand. Hurry up." Yan Yunan nodded obediently and hurried to follow with her umbrella. On the other side, Chuan Tian's team had arrived near the green corpse tide in the Z8 area. "City Lord Madam, do you want to get moving?" Looking at the green ocean not far away, Zhang Li asked in a low voice to Chuan Tian beside him. "City, the City Lord's wife." Suddenly hearing this title, Chuan Tian's pretty face suddenly appeared a trace of crimson, and he was a little embarrassed. But in her heart, she was very satisfied with this title. "Are everyone else ready?" Chuan Tian diverted his attention and asked. "Already. Very good. Detonate in 10 minutes. Understood." After setting the bomb time, Zhang Li threw it into a rotten building. Immediately, the two left quickly, found a commanding height after moving away, and waited quietly. 10 minutes later, Chuan Tian looked up at the watch on his wrist and found that the time was almost up. The next moment, boom boom, with a violent explosion, the entire neighborhood seemed to be hit by a huge force. In an instant, countless rubble flew and dust filled the air. The power of the explosion was extremely terrifying, and the heavy walls of the rotten building collapsed instantly. Because of the corrosion of the black rain, the building was already unstable, and after withstanding this fierce attack, it finally completely collapsed. A series of huge movements made the surrounding buildings tremble. The tide of corpses was suddenly alarmed, and the whole street was in chaos for a while. Roar, roar, there was an angry roar from the corpse tide, and then dense footsteps sounded, rushing towards the direction of the explosion. Chuan Tian looked at the scene in front of him, and a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "The fish is hooked," she muttered. "Let's go. Our mission is complete. Notify the next point, and detonate in 10 minutes. Understood." 10 minutes later, the tide of corpses had poured into the ruins of the rotten building, and many green slaves in the distance instinctively rushed with the army. Boom, another earth-shattering explosion sounded, and the corpse continued to run wildly along the source of the sound. Boom, a million corpses rushed toward the next location, and the earth trembled like an earthquake along the way. This scene left the surrounding survivors stunned. Mom, there are so many people. With such a big momentum, a new natural disaster has come? Damn the end times. Can you stop a little? I don't know if my house can be saved. The survivors hid in their rooms and complained, their hearts filled with panic and helplessness. All this had no effect on Chuantian, who took Zhongli to avoid the corpse tide and joined the other team members. In this way, the corpse tide headed towards the Z7 area little by little. 3 hours later, the tide of corpses finally reached the vicinity of the Longbei River. At this time, the corpse tide in the Z7 area had been completely wiped out, and one after another shining spiritual energy crystal nuclei were piled up at the bottom of the lake. Just as a new tide of corpses came, the river was once again full of green slaves, rushing towards the humans on the other side of the river. The assembly line continues to work, and everything is proceeding in an orderly manner. Chuantian also smoothly led the team back to the Big Iron Boron. I don't know what happened to the city lord. Don't have any accidents. Healing looked in the direction of the Z5 area and directly set up a flag. Chapter 97. Z5 area. The roof of the World Trade Center and the top floor have been eroded by black rain and become ruins. Above the broken wall, an umbrella stood quietly, and Mu Yun looked at the dense group of green corpses like locusts in front of him, and his eyes were ancient. Lord City Lord, the other points are ready. Yan Yunan beside him reported. Mu Yun bowed his head slightly. Let's go. When Yan Yunan heard this, she followed Mu Yun's side and left the building. 10 minutes later, an earth-shattering noise resounded in the sky. Boom, the flames burst into the sky, and the entire building was blown off by the block, and rubble flew everywhere. There are no survivors in the building. Most of them are hiding in their homes, and there are few people in these commercial areas. The same is true at other locations, where residential areas are avoided as much as possible, and the bomb placement team will check in advance whether there are survivors in the blast area. Mu Yun is not the kind of person who will do anything to achieve the end. He will pay for the mistakes he makes and fill the pits he buried by himself. The huge movement alarmed the tide of corpses not far away, and they all looked up at the burning sea of fire, revealing a greedy expression. Roar, roar, countless green slaves roared madly and rushed towards the building. At the top of the tower in the distance, Mu Yun stood with his hands in his hands, staring indifferently at the scene in the distance. Yan Yunan looked at the time on her watch and silently calculated the time when the second bomb detonated. 3, 2, 1. Boom, there was another earth-shattering noise, and as soon as the corpses arrived below the building, they were once again attracted by the sound. Whoosh, whoosh, roar, roar, the corpses swarmed, like locusts rushing towards the place where the flames were rising. Mu Yun gently hooked the corners of his mouth, turned around and jumped off the tower, leading Yan Yunan to leave here. Not long after the two left, a slender blue-white figure quietly appeared near the building. She stood quietly in place, gazing at the smoke-billowing ruins in the distance. With one step, the figure burst out and swept towards the source of the sound. Boom, boom, deafening explosions sounded one after another, and the corpses slowly advanced under the accurate calculations of Mu Yun and the others. At this moment, it was already 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and Mu Yun estimated that it would take at least 5 hours to completely induce the corpse tide to the Z7 area. Although it will take a long time, the gains are enormous. This wave of green corpse tide is estimated to be at the level of 1 million, which is enough for the base to cultivate 900 fourth order powers. At that time, even if the black rain is over, with this power, it will directly sweep the remaining corpse tide in B City. Instead of letting the military bomb at the corpse tide and psionic crystal nucleus, it is better to complete its own base. You don't have the ability to collect crystal nuclei and step aside. Then it can roll bigger and bigger like a snowball, and the base will become stronger and stronger, and then even the military will no longer have to worry about it. Just as Mu Yun was thinking about it, a feeling of heart palpitation suddenly came, and Mu Yun suddenly turned around. I saw a naked woman with blue and white skin behind me. The ice vine and ice crown set off this enchanting woman, as if a queen had arrived, causing the surrounding temperature to drop sharply. Seeing this, Mu Yun's pupils shrank sharply and blurted out, "Ice Queen? Why did this monster appear in City B? Hoa." The ice girl let out a low roar, and a pair of deep and strange white eyes stared at Yan Yunan beside Mu Yun. She felt a powerful energy fluctuation from within Mu Yun's body. Get it, eat it, and become stronger yourself. Yan Yunan was horrified by her stare, and tugged at the corner of Mu Yun's clothes. City Lord, what should I do? Run. Mu Yun grabbed Yan Yunan without hesitation, and ran away. In the next second, the ice woman jumped up without warning, and grabbed Yan Yunan's eyebrows fiercely. At this moment, countless pictures flashed in Mu Yun's mind. The speed of this monster is too fast. Almost the peak of the 5th order is about to break through the 6th order, and the physique has definitely exceeded 20 times. Her movement can barely be captured with the naked eye. The absolute realm launched, wrapping the two of them. Bang, the ice woman's arm slammed into the field, making a violent crashing sound, but it failed to penetrate the field. The two were repelled by this huge force, and the ice woman fell back to the ground. Damn it. Mu Yun gritted his teeth and cursed. Taking advantage of the gap, where the ice woman was stagnant, he quickly pulled Yan Yunan, and rushed to the sky. The ice girl shouted angrily, and the ice crystal vine turned into a long whip, and threw it towards the two. The radius of the field is only 1 meter, and the moment the ice vine touches the field, a large ice ball instantly takes shape. The cold solid ice enveloped the two of them, and then the vine pulled hard, and pulled the two back. The ice ball is made of cold key condensation, containing the ultimate low temperature. Mu Yun can only maintain the field to protect himself and Yan Yunan. This also intensifies the consumption of spiritual energy in the body. The ice girl looked at the delicacy imprisoned by herself, and couldn't wait to open her blood basin and mouth. Her sharp fangs exuded a cold glow, and 3 ice vines appeared behind her, piercing towards the 2 eyebrows. Ding ding, the field blocked the 3 ice vines, but the domain was constantly trembling, and it seemed that it was a little difficult to withstand the huge power of the ice woman. Mu Yun's face was solemn, and he began to think quickly about ways to get out of trouble. His absolute realm is indeed invincible, but the power generated cannot go beyond the scope of cognition. The implication is that he is just a 3rd order superpower, and he can't directly kill the 5th order peak ice girl. The energy in the spiritual energy crystal nucleus in his mind could not support what he was doing. Mu Yun could only barely suppress the ice woman, but if it went on like this, the first person who couldn't hold it would definitely be herself. But if you want to escape, the speed of the two is definitely not the opponent of the ice woman. If only Chuan Shan were there, it should not be a problem for the two to deal with the ice girl at the peak of the 5th order. Just as Mu Yun was thinking about it, a familiar voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Husband, where are you? I'm coming. It was Chuan Tian's voice. Mu Yun was overjoyed, and the balance of victory began to tilt towards them. Isn't it the Ice and Snow Queen? He still has a daughter-in-law. Come on, your husband is being bullied. What? Which turtle grandson dare to move my husband? Chuan Tian's irritable voice just fell, and Mu Yun only heard a whistling wind. Boom. Poof. With a muffled sound of a crisp sword cutting into the flesh, followed by a harsh scream suddenly sounded. The ice vine that the ice girl bound Mu Yun broke in response. Is that you, a demon slutty who hurt my man? Find death. Chapter 98. Chuan Tian's figure instantly appeared on the side of the ice girl, and the 2 tang knives were wielded in unison. Belding just now was attacked by Chuan Tian. The ice girl did not react before she succeeded. At this moment has returned to her senses, quickly crossed her arms to block her chest, and a layer of ice frost condensed on the surface of the skin in an instant, intercepting the 2 tang knives. But Chuan Tian took this opportunity to drop his 2 knives, and 2 pillars of light, one red and one black, suddenly shot out from his palms and bombarded the ice girl. Bang bang, with a violent crash, the ice woman let out a scream, and the violent airflow blasted the ice woman out tens of meters. When she got up from the ground, a large hole was blasted out of her chest by the black decomposition light, and her abdomen was also burned by the hot light. Mu Yun looked at this sudden scene, his eyes narrowed slightly, and his heart was shocked, and at the same time, he looked a little higher on Chuan Tian's strength. It's time to eat my wife's soft rice. Boom click. The field spread, and the ice cage that trapped Mu Yun and Yan Yunan was directly burst. Husband, are you okay? Chuan Shan walked to Mu Yun with a concerned expression, pulled his arm up and down, and checked left and right, and was relieved to see that he was not injured. It's okay, go back and talk about it, solve this guy first. Mu-Yun glanced up at the ice girl, and there was a cold light under his eyes. I'll help too. Yan Yunan put on a desperate battle, and her bun face was bulging, like a little hamster full of fighting spirit. As a result, he was dragged by Mu-Yun by the collar, and thrown away along with the umbrella. Don't make a mess, get out of here. Oh, Yan Yunan deflated her mouth, nodded obediently, and held the umbrella back. Seeing the delicious food fleeing, how could the ice woman be willing to give up like this, not caring about the injuries on her body, and immediately chased towards Yan Yunan. Mu-Yun tapped his toes, and the whole person rushed towards the ice woman like a cannonball, and the dragon court sword was unsheathed, bringing a whistling wind. Sonorous. The ice vine collided with the dragon court sword, and a strong force surged out, tearing the surrounding air into pieces. Drink. A huge force struck. Mu-Yun couldn't help but let out a low roar, and the whole person flew out upside down. Dragon court, go. The wrist flipped, the long sword buzzed. Mu-Yun sent the long sword to cut through the air, and a brilliant light suddenly lit up, like a galaxy falling, slashing towards the ice woman. The sharp dragon court sword cut through the air, with the power to destroy all things. The ice girl watched the sword light fall, her pupils contracted into needles, and her heart was terrified. Just as the sword light was about to fall on the ice woman, a loud noise came, and the ice woman, who was still standing in the distance, suddenly disappeared in front of everyone, replaced by a huge ice ball. HMPH, Ultimate Flash. Chuan Tian's attack followed, and a blazing 5-color divine light fell from the sky, smashed fiercely on the ice ball, and suddenly exploded snowflakes in the sky. Boom, the ice ball exploded in response, and the ice woman's body emerged. Her body was covered with fine cracks, and white blood slowly seeped out along her 7 tips, dyeing her whole body white. While the ice girl raised her head and roared, the cracks on her body gradually healed, but there were still some hideous scars, indicating that she had been seriously injured. Chuan Tian sneered, "Hey, this is the end of bullying, my man." The ice girl's eyes were full of resentment and killing intent, and she glared at the two with gritted teeth. "The villain died of talking too much. Hurry up and solve this guy. We don't have much energy," Mu-Yun urged. "Good." The two looked at each other, swords clasped each other, and rushed towards the ice woman with one left and one right. Oh. The rattan behind the ice girl flew, and hit Chuan Tian's blade, and the 2 tang knives were suddenly broken. Mu-Yun's attack followed, and the ice woman reached out to block, but heard a crisp click, and her bones were directly cut off by the dragon court sword. With one move to defeat the enemy, Chuan Shan took this opportunity to kick her stomach violently, and the ice woman stumbled to the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood, and her body curled up into a ball. "Well done, wife." Mu-Yun looked at Chuan Tian appreciatively. Chuan Shan raised his chin slightly, and said arrogantly, "It is necessary. You read a big move. I'll contain her," Mu-Yun said, and lifted his long sword, and stabbed towards the ice girl. Several ice picks appeared out of thin air and shot towards Mu-Yun. Mu-Yun's brows wrinkled slightly, his wrist flipped, and the dragon court sword pulled out a sword flower, deflecting the ice picks one after another, and continued to approach the ice girl. The ice woman seemed to sense the danger, and an extremely cold white mist suddenly appeared around her body. The white mist roared towards Mu-Yun, and even the air was frozen everywhere it passed, turning into pieces of ice crystals. Buzzfire. With a loud shout, a roaring flame suddenly formed out of thin air in Mu-Yun's domain, and the flames burned and rolled in the air, as if they turned into a fire snake with teeth and claws, sweeping towards the ice girl. 2 extreme energies collided violently in the air, making a croaking friction sound. What was originally a fierce battle evolved into a competition of their respective energies. If it continues, Mu-Yun must be the first to exhaust his spiritual energy. But he is not fighting alone. He is not alone. "Husband, get out of the way." Chuan Shan shouted angrily, and the 2 5-colored gods between his hands shone brightly. In order to defeat the enemy with one move, Chuan Shan directly sang 2 big moves. Ultimate Flash 2.0. I saw 2 huge beams of light converge in midair, fusing, forming a colored pillar of light the thickness of a water tank, carrying the momentum of destruction and decay, and blasted straight towards the ice woman. Seeing this, Mu-Yun did not dare to stay, and as soon as the flames were collected, the whole person directly soared up, avoiding the impact range of the light pillar. As the sea of fire disappeared, the blocked vision of the ice woman became wide again, followed by a dazzling beam. She had no time to do any protective measures. She could only watch the beam getting closer and closer. Boom. A piercing sharp sound resounded in the sky, and the powerful energy shook the surrounding earth, trembling, and the dazzling light finally drowned the figure of the ice woman. When the light faded, the ice woman had long since disappeared, and only the two crystal nuclei in the broken ice block on the ground proved that someone had indeed survived just now. On the other hand, Chuan Tian was also uncomfortable. His physical energy was all exhausted, his face was as pale as paper, and the defensive golden light on his body was also dim, trembling as about to fall backwards. "Are you alright, wife?" Mu-Yun flashed in front of him, and took him into his arms. Feeling the familiar temperature and breath, Chuan Tian's heart warmed, and he shook his head to indicate that he was fine. "It's just that the consumption is greater, it's okay." Mu-Yun's deep eyes were faintly distressed. "This place should not stay for a long time, and your energy is about to run out, so you should quickly find a place to hide from the black rain." Picking up the 5th order peak spiritual energy crystal nucleus and a thumb-sized blue crystal on the ground, Mu-Yun picked up Chuan Tian and quickly left the place. Chapter 99. As night fell, the city was unusually quiet. The black clouds seemed to be squeezed dry, and the rain gradually weakened. In a clothing store, the door was blocked by various obstacles, and the two sat cross-kneeled on the ground to recover their spiritual energy. Chuan Tian closed his eyes and meditated, while Mu-Yun opened his eyes and stared at the dark rainy night outside the window. His eyebrows were full of worry, and he kept an eye on the sky. Suddenly, a breeze blew, and the black rain curtain that had been covered gradually dispersed, and the situation outside was clearly presented in his eyes. The streets were full of potholes, the rich sour smell was disgusting, and the suffocating putrid smell of death floated in the air. Black rain stopped. Mu-Yun stood up, looked up at the sky, and muttered, "I don't know if Longbei River can withstand the remaining tide of corpses." Chuan Tian opened his eyes and asked suspiciously, "What's wrong?" Mu-Yun shook his head. "It's nothing. How are you recovering?" "Almost." Chuan Tian nodded. Hearing this, Mu-Yun let go of his hanging heart. The two got up and walked outside the house, looking up at the dark clouds in the sky that had completely dispersed. "Let's go back early, so as not to have accidents," Mu-Yun said in a low voice. Chuan Tian nodded approvingly. Dada. Tutor on the bank of the Longbei River, Niu Dasean held two rifles and shot at the opposite bank. Tongues of fire spewed, and bullets flew everywhere. Next to Niu Dasean, the rest of the people stood in a row, and also attacked fiercely towards the opposite side of the riverbank. As the black rain disappeared, the green slaves' offensive became more ferocious. The originally ink-black river rippled at this moment, and countless corpses emerged from the bottom of the water, and people with dense phobias could not bear it at all. It can be clearly noted that the temperature of the river is dropping, and the rate of corrosion and decomposition of corpses is slowing down. Some second-order green slaves were even able to step on the corpses of their companions and stay in the water for a few minutes. Half of the 50-meter wide river has been covered by the corpses of green slaves, and it may not be long before the tide of corpses will lie down and sweep across the river. Tap Dada. Niu Dasean and the others were still desperately shooting forward to prevent the corpse tide from crossing the river. "The lethality of bullets is still too weak. Use special energy," Zhang Li calmly suggested. The rest agreed. At this moment, they are all third-order superpowers, and the power of their skills is already much stronger than before, and it is enough to deal with these ordinary green slaves. Everyone quickly adjusted their positions, flipped their wrists, and their palms glowed with light. Immediately afterwards, fireballs the size of a basin, huge stones the size of a water tank, and an overwhelming rain of arrows fell towards the corpses on the opposite side. For a while, there was a wail. The fireball exploded, shattering the more than 10 green slaves piled up around it, splashing flesh and blood. The boulder fell, setting off huge waves among the corpses, and one boulder after another smashed the heads of large green slaves. The arrow penetrated the body, pierced the skin, and penetrated deep into the green slave's body. Although these green slaves are powerful, they are only numerically superior after all. The key is that the development speed of the dragon court is too fast, and the evolution speed of the green slaves cannot keep up with the speed of their breakthrough. In the face of everyone's crazy attack, the dense tide of corpses was suddenly emptied. The tide of corpses continued to flow, and soon filled the vacancy here. Soon, the second round of power struck again. The overwhelming skills rained down like raindrops, sweeping away the corpse tide again. After the spiritual energy in the body was exhausted, he quickly took out the spiritual energy crystal nucleus for absorption, and by the way, he suddenly took shots. When Mu Yun arrived, the battle was nearing its end. It seems that even without us, these people are already in the climate. Listening to Mu Yun's words, Chuan Shan said in an old-fashioned manner, "This is inevitable. The cruel end times are forcing them to grow." Mu Yun was a little confused. When did his wife actually become so wise? What are you looking at? Chuan Tian raised his eyebrows. Mu Yun immediately looked away and touched his nose. "What you said just now is very reasonable. It is worthy of being my wife. Don't be poor. I feel like I'll go back to sleep after cleaning up. It's almost 11 o'clock. Chuan glanced at him and took the lead in taking a step forward. Mu Yun followed behind her with a smile, in an excellent mood. "My daughter-in-law has just grown up and will eat soft rice with peace of mind in the future." With the return of Mu Yun and Chuan Tian, the matter of the green corpse tide finally came to an end. The surface of the river was littered with corpses, and the smell was disgusting. But Mu Yun didn't dislike this at all. There were nearly 3 million supernatural crystal nuclei under this corpse. Such a rich harvest, he never dreamed of. "City Lord, do you need to send someone down to salvage?" "No need." Mu Yun waved his hand. "You take people to the other bank to clean the battlefield, and the battlefield in the Z7 area also needs to be cleaned. Just leave it to me in the river." Niu Dazhuang nodded. "Howler. By the way, remember to burn these corpses. It will not be good if there is a plague." Mu Yun ordered. "Okay, I know." Niu Dazhuang led the order to leave, while Mu Yun personally went down to the river, preparing to salvage the crystal nucleus. The field unfolded. Mu Yun flew above the river, and then slowly sank. The river was forced back by the field, revealing the riverbed, and above the riverbed were piled up countless shining crystal nuclei, reflecting an alluring luster under the moonlight. Looking at the crystal nuclei on the riverbed, Mu Yun's breathing couldn't help but quicken. He waved his hand lightly at the crystal nucleus, and under the control of his thoughts, countless crystal nuclei flew up from the riverbed and fell into the space ring in his hand. A long river of crystal nuclei just disappeared without a trace. Mu Yun swam at the bottom of the river, and after making sure that nothing was missing, he returned to the river. "How's the harvest going?" Chuan Tian, who had been guarding the riverbank, stepped forward. This time it was really profitable. Mu Yun happily stretched out his hand in front of her and shook it. "It adds up to more than 2 million and 8 billion, which is enough for us to break through to the 8th order." Hearing this, Chuan Tian couldn't help but gasp. "There are so many. And don't look at your man's means." Mu Yun sighed. A moment later, Niu Dazhuang and the others had also returned from cleaning up the battlefield, and brought back more than 300,000 crystal nuclei, all of which were included in the space ring by Mu Yun. Go back." Oh. Xen and his group walked towards the base. Everyone seemed to be paid, and the wind was raging under their feet. Chapter 100. When everyone returned to the base, it was already 2 o'clock in the morning. At this moment, the castle was tightly covered by iron sheets, and was not eroded by the black rain and was intact. The only flaw was that the castle was dark, because of the lack of electricity. Mu Yun has dozens of multifunctional dual oil hybrid generators on his hands, as well as thousands of manpower pedaling generators. The problem of electricity is not a problem, but it is too late now. It is better to wash and sleep first, and it will not be late to deal with it tomorrow. Today everyone has worked hard. Tomorrow as usual rest day, free movement. Yay. Long live Lord City. Everyone rejoiced, cleaned up, and returned to their respective rooms. Now that the water source is polluted, the problem of bathing in the base has become extremely serious, and the men are okay, and the women are more troublesome. It's not that women are pretentious, but the smell. After coming to relatives, it's scary to think about it without bathing for a long time. Although there is a large amount of water in Muyun's ring, enough for the base to squander, so that the water system powerhouse grows, there is no water pump in the manor, and delivering water is a problem. Muyun suddenly found that there were still a bunch of problems waiting for him to solve. Alas, how did you sigh? Shouldn't today's harvest be happy? Chuantian beside him sighed when he saw Muyun sighing, and couldn't help but quip. It's just that I find that the stall is too big, and there are too many things to worry about. Muyun shook his head with a wry smile. Why do you always carry everything on your shoulders? Chuanshan slapped him in disgust. You don't understand. Okay, don't worry about it. Just let your subordinates do it. When you have something to explain in the future, it's a big deal. Let's go back to the shelter and continue to live in the world of 3. Chuantian comforted half jokingly. Makes sense. Muyun's eyes lit up. This is already a qualified base, and it should learn to grow on its own. The corners of Chuantian's mouth twitched slightly. She was joking. Muyun actually seriously considered this matter. How about you think about it again? Chuantian asked tentatively. No need, our next main task is to break through the realm, and don't forget, the sister-in-law hasn't picked it up yet. The development of the base is left to Sister Lan. Muyun waved his hand calmly, and decided to be a handshaker to improve his strength with peace of mind. Okay, then I'll listen to you. Well, Muyun smiled, and touched Chuantian's head. The next morning, sunlight fell on the floor through the gaps. A sound of Zsuo dressing came into his ears. Muyun slowly opened his eyes, and he was stunned for a moment when his gaze touched a touch of fair skin. Awake. Chuanshan lay on the bed on his side, his elbows propped on the bed, and the back of his hand supported his cheek, and looked at Muyun with a smile. Muyun stretched out and sat up. Well, what about Coco? Have breakfast downstairs, and now I'm probably clamoring to watch TV. After the power outage, Coco's world lost its color, and how could I live without the world of Miracle Girl? Lin Ming's forehead suddenly burst into a few green tendons. HMPH. It's time to start letting her learn knowledge, and if you continue like this, it will be completely wasted. In the living room on the second floor, Coco, who was originally puffing out her cheeks, suddenly felt cold behind her, and she heard Muyun's heart, and secretly said that she wanted to finish. When Muyun found Coco, he found that she was reading quietly. Billingbrings' big eyes were concentrated, and his cute face was a little serious, as if he saw something interesting, and he looked like he was talking about it with relish. Muyun suddenly felt incredible. The sun hit the west and came out. Or was my Coco taken away? Curious, he took a closer look at the title of the book in the girl's hand. The Experimental Basis of Quantum Entanglement. Muyun was silent. Can a 6.5-year-old read this thing? No way. When pigs fly, then there is only one truth. Oops, exposed. After hearing Muyun's heart, Coco suddenly clicked in her heart, but she still pretended to be calm. Uncle Early. Coco raised a bright smile and tried to get through it. Muyun looked at her, his eyes were deep, and he seemed to see everything. What are you looking at? Coco swallowed her spit. It's the mind reading technique is activated. As long as you read what your uncle is thinking, you can know the answer. Huh. Muyun glanced at Coco lightly, and a hint of cunning appeared at the corner of his mouth. 300 Tang poems. That's right, I'm reading 300 Tang poems. Coco's small hand was inserted, as if he was named by the teacher, to answer the question correctly in class, and finally got the answer correct, with a proud face. 300 Tang poems. Muyun's face was full of black lines, and he grabbed her collar and picked the person up. Snap. HMM. Let go of me. Let go of me. Coco struggled to kick up her limbs, wanting to escape Muyun's claws. Let you have 300 Tang poems. Let you lie. It's still their own people who are deceived. Muyun taught her a hard lesson. Wu Chuanshan glanced at it, indicating that she didn't see anything. Woo snap. Coco cried pear blossoms with rain, and her face was loveless. Oh, you don't have 3 lollipops, you guys want to coax me. Finally, Coco ran back to the room while crying, and locked the door. By the way, husband, are you starting too heavy? This girl is now ghostly, and she is afraid of spanking. If she is a second order superpower, it's all pretended to show us, and when the time comes, she will sit down and negotiate the conditions. Muyun mercilessly pierced Coco's disguise. This Chuantian couldn't believe that a 6-year-old child could be so scheming. Will you think too much? You're naive. Muyun pinched Chuantian's soft and smooth face. This girl's abilities are prompting her to grow up quickly, and although I have forbidden her to spy on other people's hearts, what child will listen to adults? Muyun's tone was slightly melancholy. The joys, angers, and sorrows of all of us. Life is varied, good or evil. This information will subtly forcing Coco's mind to grow as terrible as a demon. Now what she saw and heard is not yet dark. If one day she really comes into contact with the darkness of the hearts of the last days. Muyun's voice gradually muffled and finally dissipated in the air. Can't you keep the status quo? Chuantian asked. Muyun rubbed Chuantian's long black and soft hair. I hope Coco will always live happily and happily, without being scared like us, not having to bear the hardships of the last days, nor facing danger and death. I only hope that she has always been the little princess we spoil and love, and live a carefree life. But, is it possible? People always have to grow up. Escape cannot solve problems. Only by facing and overcoming difficulties can we reap true happiness. We can't protect her for the rest of our lives. Chuanshan hugged Muyun's broad chest and rubbed it gently. I understand. What you said makes sense. Coco needs the right guidance, not blindly suppressing or closing her mind. So to get a good education, elementary school, junior high school, university must all come all over again. Coco, hiding under the covers. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.